Please come to order. The 2026 annual town meeting is now back in session. Thank you for coming for night 2. We're going to start with Article 36 on page 45. Before we go there, though, I just want to say one thing. And I probably should have done this last night, but I've just been in total denial about this. I want to thank John Giorgio for 11 years? 11 years. Oh, 15 years of being Of course. You've been an amazing help and person over these last 15 years. And Lauren's going to do an amazing job, but we're going to miss you.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. So tomorrow is my 40th anniversary at KP Law. Yeah. And I'm only retiring because my 3 daughters have threatened to take my car keys away if I don't. But seriously, it's been an absolute honor of my life to be able to serve the town of Nantucket. I can see Nantucket from my home. I live in Chatham, not quite. And I love this town. I love the town meeting. I love all the elected officials and the department heads. And it's really been truly a great honor and a joy. So thank you very much.
And then one other preliminary matter, Joe Topham has a short statement he's going to make about something of interest.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Nantucket, I'd like to inform you all that we're in the forefront of planning and safety for everyone on the island. When Article 73 passed in the 2025 warrant, we were in the forefront of the state and honestly the country. Yesterday, May 4th, 2026, Governor Healy filed the first in the nation legislation because of regulation for e-bikes, scooters, mopeds, and including minimum age requirements and other safety measures mirroring Article 73. The proposed legislation is aimed to reduce crashes, strengthening enforcement, improving safety for riders, pedestrians, and riders alike. First in the nation, speed-based framework. For example, lowering speeds on e-bikes would follow bike lanes and bike paths, which we've passed for 20 miles an hour on Nantucket. Clear enforcement, safety standards, riders' higher speeds must be at least 16 years old. Helmet required, specific devices, categories, including requirements for riders under 16, mandatory safety such as light, reflectors, braking system, improvement visibility, and reducing collisions. Strong rules to protect pedestrians and reduce conflicts, including restricting higher speed devices from sidewalks, bike paths, and lanes and roadways in certain areas. Accountability for higher speed and modified devices, and anything that is illegally modified or unsafe modifications will be deemed illegal. Clear enforcement and authority in law enforcement, ensuring officers can apply consistent rules and penalties on unsafe behaviors across device types, including and improving state future safety improvements in infrastructure and investments. Again, we've just changed and modified some bike path signage as of this week. New authority of the Registry of Motor Vehicles to respond quicker for new technology without waiting for additional legislation. The bill will reflect Commission's responsibilities and recommendations to create a clear statewide framework allowing flexibility to adapt rapid evolving technology. Again, Nantucket should be proud to be a leader in the Commonwealth and nationally, having helped shape this legislation with the local bylaw changes approved in our town meetings and set speed limits for bike paths and clarity of classification for these mobility devices. Again, thank you to the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, including members not for least my fearless leader and chair, Ian Goulding, vice chair, RJ Turcott, Ed Claflin, Michelle Kramer, Michael Minton, Laura Waters, and Editor-in-Chief, Town Councilor Brian Riley of KP Law. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. Article 36 on page 45 received a move to take no action from the Finance Committee. We had a comment that we added via technical amendment yesterday that kind of explained what that was. And we're going to have a positive motion from Ms. Oliver as written basically in the warrant, moved to dedicate, and then the rest of the text of Article 36 is published in the warrant. Is that your motion, Ms. Oliver?
That's my motion, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Is there
Are we not going to pray tonight?
No praying.
Okay.
We did double duty last night.
Okay.
Yeah, we only do all that stuff the first night. I don't know why. Okay. Is there a second? Motion is made and seconded. Ms. Oliver.
Okay. Thank you. For starters, I'd like to clear up some confusing comments that were provided by the town in that statement. This fund would not be funded by stepping in front of anyone who is due allocation from the Vineyard Wind Blade settlement. The article specifically states that the purpose of this fund is to cover damage to residents harmed by offshore wind incidents. The article, if passed, would create a system of transparency where we, the voters, know where and how the funds received from offshore wind agreements and settlements are spent. This has not been the case to date. In fact, the initial $4 million payment as part of the Good Neighbor Agreement with Vineyard Wind has not been fully accounted for, and questions remain about how the full amount of the payment has been allocated. As the town clearly writes in their statement, if Article 36 passes, the law would lock in its restrictions for a minimum of 3 years. The town could not change the permitted uses of the funds. That is exactly why I'm asking for this fund to be as it is. It cannot be spent on anything else. I think $1 million is a good number to start with. The purpose of the article is to create a fund dedicated to financially help protect and prevent Nantucket from offshore wind-related impacts. The town of Nantucket has already incurred significant expenses from offshore wind, specifically from the Vineyard Wind blade failure. We have incurred costs related to environment, cleanup, safety, town staff and administration, legal and financial experts. Our town leadership recognizes that we are financially exposed as well. For example, the town's list of 15 demands for Vineyard Wind put forth last summer included a request that Vineyard Wind fund a $10 million escrow account to cover expenses for future blade failures. We have received $0. As the town and its lawyers have stated, future blade failures are expected. It's evident from what we've already witnessed that Nantucket is on its own, and we have to financially be prepared and protected. In the town's legal filings, we've repeatedly claimed that offshore wind development is harmful to Nantucket because it causes harm to Nantucket's environment, harm to its tourism-based economy, harm to the National Historic Landmark status, and harm to its dark skies. Despite these strong claims made in our legal filings, the Good Neighbor Agreement, the agreement that was supposed to protect Nantucket from visual impacts, quite shockingly included no provisions that restrict the number or the size of the expected hundreds of turbines and substations. This is a terrible oversight. We are now seeing the severe visual impacts both day and night from these just first 62. As it stands, the town will have to continue to source funding for professionals in its ongoing effort to better protect our island, which is a historic national landmark. In terms of removing turbines and substations, the Vineyard Wind, once defunct, bankrupt, or deemed illegal, the sad truth is the normal requirement to escrow funding for project removal was waived by the previous administration. Therefore, there's no money set aside to remove turbine substations or anything else related to offshore wind. Nantucket will need funding to protect itself from the Vineyard Wind graveyard that we have a potential to become. My organization, Act for Whales, has been the leading advocate for Nantucket with respect to offshore wind for the last 7 years. And as always, we continue to invite the town to join us as co-plaintiffs on any or all of our legal actions. In the meantime, we believe our island is financially exposed, must be better protected going forward. Funding to hold offshore wind developers and government agencies accountable. Good legal counsel and professionals are both necessary and costly. I believe this fund can help us do all of that. Please vote yes for Article 36.
Thank you. Ms. Moore?
I'm going to reread the select board comment because it was done as a technical amendment, and I just want to make sure everybody has heard it or remembers it. So the select board recommends against Article 36 and supports the Finance Committee's motion to take no action. The settlement funds are currently held in escrow by the town's special counsel and serve two purposes. One, supporting ongoing efforts to oppose future wind turbine proposals and advocate against the negative impacts of offshore wind on Nantucket. And two, paying claims submitted by residents and businesses who suffered damages from the wind turbine blade failure in July of 2024, as required by the town's settlement with GE Vernova. Placing these funds into a stabilization fund would require a town meeting vote to access them, creating significant practical problems. First, it would impair the town's ability to engage professional services quickly in response to the fast-moving landscape of offshore wind development, including specific permitting actions and evolving state, federal policies. Second, the restrictions on Article 36 imposes on permissible use. The restrictions Article 36 imposes on permissible uses could prevent the town, or at least delay, from paying resident and business claims in a timely manner and could limit the town's flexibility to address unforeseen needs. Finally, if Article 36 passes, the law would lock in its restrictions for a minimum of 3 fiscal years. So just as a practical matter, we have an ongoing application process for businesses and individuals to apply for compensation under the $10.5 million settlement agreement with GE Vernova. If we lock funds into a stabilization fund, those people won't get paid until next year's town meeting, and it requires a two-thirds vote to release funds from a stabilization fund. So we can't hire an attorney to respond to a new application or to a lawsuit filed or to do the things that the select board is already committed and is actively doing on behalf of the town of Nantucket. We take very seriously our obligation to do our best to protect Nantucket from the negative impacts of offshore wind. But I have to be honest, and we all have to be practical and realistic about how much control Nantucket has over projects permitted in federal waters, under federal guidance, under federal permitting regulations. There's a sense somewhere that we have some power out there to stop this or to change it. The reality is we have very limited scope of influence over offshore wind. We're doing the best we can. We've succeeded on South Shore Wind. We secured $10.5 million from GE Vernova, which, somebody might argue that's not a lot of money. I can tell you that was not easily fought for. I did it myself. So I just hope that you all understand we're already doing this to the best of our ability. We can't stop them. We can limit their impact to the best of our ability. We can find the cracks in the armor at the federal level. We can advocate like heck for all of you and for all of us. And as to taking knowledge today and applying it to the Good Neighbor Agreement that was negotiated nearly a decade ago, this was a brand new industry. The select board was put in a position of trying to anticipate what might come in the future. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be judged on what people know about me today for behavior I had when I was a teenager. Applying knowledge today to past history is very, very frustrating, and I think it's not fair to the select board who did their best job to secure the only mitigation that was available on a project that was moving forward whether we liked it or not. And there have been a lot of failed lawsuits filed. They have not gone anywhere. We have actually had more litigation success from the town's perspective and our litigation strategy than any other organization who's tried to stop these offshore wind farms. So please vote no on this article.
Thank you.
Can I rebut?
Did you want to finish or, okay. I'm going to go to town council, then I'll come back up to you, Ms. Oliver.
Okay.
So, Madam Moderator, I would encourage everyone here at town meeting to think very carefully about the implications if you vote yes on this motion, purely from a legal standpoint, because that's my job. One thing that hasn't been mentioned is, can you imagine coming to town meeting to seek money out of this fund in order to institute litigation? We would have that, the select board would have to do that in an entirely public process, reveal litigation strategy not only to town meeting, but to the companies and the federal government, whoever we are thinking about suing. That, in my experience, would be a prescription for failure. Because would you want to hire a lawyer who had to give their legal advice publicly, as opposed to protected under the attorney-client privilege and executive session? The select board has met many times in executive session with special counsel. They've been able to have a free and productive discussion about the legal risks and benefits, and I think that has served the town extremely well. You will lose that if you have to come to town meeting and have a public discussion about litigation strategy. I think that's a very, very important point. The other point I want to make is, if you vote this, any revenue that comes to the town after July 1st, because that's the legal standard, would have to go into this fund. So the town does not have those GE Genova settlement funds in hand now. They are in escrow, as the select board's comment mentions. And if this passes, that money will, it's a legal issue, it's a legal question, but I think there is a question whether or not the town could spend that money without coming back to town meeting. And then finally, it's very important to understand that if you vote this tonight, you are locked in for 3 years. You're going to lose any flexibility you currently have to be able to adapt and change strategy to expend the advocacy fund money to meet the actual challenges that are coming up. And so I understand the purposes of this article, but in my experience and in my judgment, purely from a legal standpoint, I think it's going to create some very serious adverse issues for the town in terms of being able to deal with litigation strategy going forward.
Thank you. Ms. Oliver?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reason for this article is really transparency on what monies are received and what monies are spent and on what. And Ms. Moore didn't read the last paragraph of their statement, which says, the town could not change the permitted uses of the funds nor rescind its dedication vote during that period, and any amendment would take a 2/3 vote of town meeting. I think my goal is simply to put the decisions in the hands of the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reed?
Thank you. I helped the proponents of this article in drafting it, and the reason that we drafted it as a stabilization fund was exactly the point that this would remain in effect for 3 years. The select board, I'm sure, as per their comment and as per what Ms. Moore said and Mr. Giorgio, are proceeding in good faith at the present time in terms of dealing with the funds in question. But the key point is that in the last paragraph of that recommendation, as it was read, the concern is that this would prevent the select board from changing the dedication of the funds over the next 3 years and using them for another purpose. That's exactly what we're trying to avoid. And I have no question that they are proceeding in good faith, as I said, but I think that locking it in so that the funds will be spent for that purpose is a small price to pay for making sure that, in fact, they do get spent that way in accordance with the way that the voters of Nantucket want them to be spent. The select board members can come and go as they have over the last 10 years, and we have no assurance that the same position will continue to take effect over the period of time that this will be that this article will be in effect. So I would encourage you to vote in favor of the article. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Saperstein?
Madam Moderator, thank you. I'm Lee Saperstein. And what I'm about to say is in opposition to this would cost me dearly with my colleagues in the coal industry and the National Mining Association. It is the statement in subsection D that says that we really want to prevent wind turbines. I've been underground all through the United States. I've been underground in China. I know what coal mining is like. I love dearly my colleagues in the mines, but they are producing something that is not all that healthy to our environment. When I was in China, it was clear that an awful lot of effluent was going into the atmosphere from coal-burning power stations. Today's newspaper reports that China is doing very well, both using wind turbines and selling them. It all had to do with whether or not they could get oil from the Straits of Hormuz. Our president has asked England to pump more oil out of the Brent oil field, and yet at the same time, those platforms are being converted to wind turbine. I have no real comment on the use of the stabilization fund, but I don't think we should vote in favor of something that is so strenuously opposed to wind turbines. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Clayton, 9 Ridge Lane. I'd just like to support the previous speaker in saying that wind turbines are actually a good thing. I wouldn't believe anything said by Act for Whales. No whale has ever been killed by a wind turbine. Whales are being killed by ship strikes and fishing gear entanglement. If you're interested in saving the whales, you should be supporting wind turbines because that will reduce the use of fossil fuels, which are leading to the warming of the planet, which is leading to sea level rise, and also for the acidification of the ocean, which will kill the whales. So what happened to Nantucket with the blade failure was a terrible thing and should never happen again. But that doesn't mean that wind turbines are a bad thing. And so I think we should separate those two things. And please vote against this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Oliver?
I'm interested in the previous speaker. Just as a note, the wind turbines are owned by fossil fuel companies and they're created by fossil fuel companies. So I don't know how much of saving the planet they're going to do, and I don't think that's relevant to our conversation here at the moment.
Thank you. Okay, On Ms. Oliver's motion, are you rising to speak, Ms.? No? Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to call you out. I did not mean to do that. Okay. Seeing no speakers at the microphones, I think we can go to a vote on Ms. Oliver's motion on Article 36. The motion is as printed on the screen. A yes vote. Mr. Giorgio, can you confirm, is this a 2/3 vote because of the stabilization? Okay. It does require a 2/3 vote. A yes vote will adopt the motion. A no vote will defeat the motion. It's 1 for yes, 2 for no, and voting is open. Okay. All right. We're going to stop voting. Stop your voting. If you're, maybe can we just take a little break here? Okay. So I probably should have done a little trial here. So on the bottom right-hand corner of your device is an on button. Hit that button and make sure your device is on. Usually when they're handed to you out at the tables, they're on, but maybe that didn't happen in all cases today. Does everyone have their device on? Okay. So now, when the light comes on, and that's a problem too, don't vote until the light comes on. When the light comes on and voting is open, it's going to be 1 for yes and 2 for no. Yes. I don't think it matters. You don't need to clear. But you can if you want to. 3 is clear. Okay. All good? Then we're going to try this again. So 1 for yes, 2 for no, 1 adopts, 2 defeats, 2/3 vote is required. Voting is open. And once you voted, you should get a yes received or no received, depending upon how you voted. Voting is now closed. On the motion, 81 yes, 230 no. That is not adopted. So 81 yes, 230 no. Okay. Article 37 on page 46 received a move to take no action recommendation. I have a positive motion from the article sponsor, Mr. Williams, as follows. Move to appropriate the sum of $100,000 from the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund retained earnings for the purpose of conducting a feasibility study for the project described in Article 37 of the warrant. Is that your motion, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Is there a second? Motion is made and seconded. Mr. Williams.
Yes, I've probably tried 4 different times to move forward with some kind of new technology at the landfill. If you've ever been out there, I think we need to do something sooner than later. I've tried gasification, incineration, and I was just recently approached by a group that's working with Dartmouth College for paralysis of the trash. So instead of trying to make a article to appropriate money or get any one technology, I've worked through town council and the finance director's help to make this motion. I think it's a friendly motion for $100,000 to move forward with seeking new technology, or have a committee put together to really get serious about doing something other than what we're doing out there now, because the hill is full, and even the fact that we have liners, the liners aren't good forever. So hopefully this, like I say, friendly motion will do something and we can move forward, and hopefully this technology with this newest group pans out and we can start doing something different with our trash and maybe make money with the trash to energy. So we should vote yes. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Patno?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Drew Patno, Director of Public Works. I'll keep my remarks on the motion pretty short. We have time and time again looked at emerging technologies for management of solid waste. There are no municipal solid waste incineration facilities that are permitted in Massachusetts. It is most definitely not economic or feasible at the scale, and especially considering the seasonal nature of our waste here on island. So I do not recommend supporting this article. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'll go to you next, Brooke. The gentleman up in the back.
Hi, my name is Howard Matz, and for most of my career, I spent working in investing and analyzing and considering renewable energy projects in the United States and around the world. And I actually have looked at anaerobic digesters and pyrolysis projects as well for investment and development in the United States. In the United States, and especially in Western Europe, which is a leader in this, there are no viable commercial anaerobic or pyrolysis projects in existence whatsoever. And if there were, we would be happy to take a look at them when they came about. So if you have a specific technology, I actually have people in the industry that can take a look at it and validate it. But right now, this is a silly idea. It's been posted many, many years for voter approval. And incineration is not legal in the state of Massachusetts, as Drew said.
Thank you. Ms. Moore?
I just want to reiterate that there is a solid waste planning group that meets on a regular basis, and this is part of our charge, is to continue to monitor with the help of Mr. Matz, who has extensive expertise in this area, as well as our consultant, George Aronson. We are open to and are looking at any proposals from the industry and ideas, and to repeat, nothing is deemed viable yet. We even went as far as to send samples of our waste streams to a company that in Puerto Rico that has been testing a technology, and it's not ready for prime time. We know it, and again, to repeat, there's a plant on St. Bart's or somewhere in the Caribbean where they actually found that the volume of trash they were producing was inadequate to make it fiscally viable, and they actually import trash from other islands in order to make it financially viable. So the scale and the seasonality are critical here, but it may come, and we are looking for it. We will eventually need to introduce other technologies, but the idea of expending money on something we're basically already doing seems like a mistake to me. Thanks.
Mr. Evans?
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and through you to the members of the body. So, yes, I seconded the motion. Mr. Williams and I disagree when it comes to incineration. I'm in favor of anaerobic digesters, and I think that it sounds very promising that this group is looking at this. And to address the concerns of the previous speakers, that it's wholly incorrect to say that there is nothing at scale. There are projects in Washington State, Colorado, Wisconsin that have done this on a municipal level. The state of New York actually has it written into their energy policy, the Climate Act, as well as following legislation, that it is part of their effort to reduce carbon emissions by 85% below 1990 levels by 2050. So this is a viable technology. And actually, I would point out that Germany actually is investing in anaerobic digesters. They've built 9,000, and they produce renewable natural gas, which has been found on average to have a negative 25 carbon intensity. And when produced from manure, negative 298 carbon intensity. The Argonne National Laboratory at the Department of Energy has said that renewable natural gas can reduce carbon emissions by 95%. This is something that we should be looking at. It can be easily incorporated into existing transportation fuel systems at very minimal cost. Has enormous potential to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and it's far more reliable than electric vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams?
Unless I've been talking to a ghost, there are people out there doing paralysis, and they're spending a lot of money to do it, and they believe the technology is going to work sooner than later. This is the reason I worked with Town Council, is to make a friendly amendment and to move forward, because I really believe we haven't. To say that incineration is against the law, there's 7 incinerators here in Massachusetts. They're not against the law. You just have to get a permit for one, which we've never tried to do. But I'm going to stop arguing those points. I would like this to be passed so that we could really make a valiant effort to do something at the landfill, because otherwise you're going to have to do something at the landfill. It's going to be like a COVID attack. You're going to have to do something quick, because we're in trouble. Thanks.
Mr. Patnode?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. To respond to the previous speaker, sure, there is technology out there that's viable at scale and in other municipalities. We are not other municipalities. To Brooke Moore's point, unless we want to be a community that imports waste, this type of technology is really not for Nantucket. And somehow we've talked about incineration and anaerobic digestion as if they're interchangeable technologies. They're simply not. I actually was prepared to speak on anaerobic digestion tonight, so I might as well put my remarks out there. Before doing, an implementation at a large scale and a large dollar value, I would always recommend that we do a feasibility study. We did a feasibility study on anaerobic digestion in 2020, so that was 6 years ago. The study identified a cost of $15 to $20 million to construct, and another $900,000 to $1.6 million in operating and maintenance costs annually for an anaerobic digester. The study had cited the anaerobic digester at the wastewater treatment facility and confirmed that the island is too small to support a standalone anaerobic digestion facility of economic size. The result of anaerobic digestion can be renewable natural gas, or RNG. Mainland experience, again, different than Nantucket. It really has, or mainland experience with RNG has no relevance to an island without a natural gas distribution pipe network or other infrastructure. We do not have vehicles, equipment, or building systems that operate on RNG. One key challenge to Nantucket that I've touched on previously is that we produce relatively small volumes of a wide variety of waste types and have wide swings in volumes seasonally. To date, as I mentioned, none of the emerging technologies that we have investigated and we will continue to investigate have been determined to be appropriate for the types and quantities of solid waste requiring management on Nantucket. Frankly, these repeated articles are unnecessary and ill-advised. The Solid Waste Planning Work Group and the Sewer Department are already actively reviewing and monitoring the development of a variety of new waste processing technologies, as we previously mentioned. Very careful evaluation of those new technologies will continue, especially regarding their scale and the economics of any sort of implementation for Nantucket.
Thank you. If you could ramp up, that would be good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Question?
Yeah, we're going to go to a vote. Mr. Giorgio, does this require a 2/3 or just a simple majority? Okay, so we're going to vote on Mr. Williams' motion to appropriate the sum of $100,000 from the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund retained earnings for the purpose of conducting a feasibility study for the project described in Article 37 of the warrant. A yes vote will adopt that motion, a no vote will defeat that motion, and it does require a simple majority. Voting is open. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Voting is closed. On the motion, yes 87, no 236. The motion is not adopted. Okay. Article 39. Article 39 is on page 47 of the warrant. It received a motion to take no action on the article from the Planning Board. The Finance Committee supported the Planning Board motion. Mr. Graziadei has called this and has a positive motion to make, which is as shown on the screen. Is that your motion, Jason?
It is, Madam Moderator.
Great. Is there a second? Motion is made and seconded.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Jason Graziadei. I'm the editor of Nantucket Current. I just wrote something down here, so I'll be pretty brief, but I called this article because it's really just a continuation of what town meeting overwhelmingly supported last year in Article 85, which was my citizen petition to allow the town to fulfill its requirement to publish notices of public hearings in a print newspaper or a digital online publication. Unfortunately, that general bylaw amendment did not apply to the demolition delay bylaw, which is under the zoning bylaw. As you might recall, this is the bylaw that requires property owners looking to demolish a structure to first make it available to anyone who's able to move it to another location on island before it is demolished. Part of that bylaw is a requirement that the property owner take out an advertisement to let people know that the structure is available to be moved. So I want to thank the Planning Board, the Planning and Land Use Services staff who included Article 39 on this year's warrant to add language to the demolition delay bylaw to allow the required public notice of houses that need to be moved in a newspaper or an electronic media of general circulation on Nantucket. The Planning Board, however, made a motion to take no action on this article, which is why I called it and why I'm asking town meeting to please approve this positive motion, which gives property owners the option of deciding where to publicize a free house and deciding which publication will give them the greatest reach to accomplish what I think we all want, which is to see these structures recycled. The Current has worked extensively over the past year with the Nantucket Preservation Trust to publicize some of these houses that are available. We've gotten a huge response in reaching people who may otherwise have missed a legal notice in the newspaper. The Preservation Trust can speak to that partnership, but I think it's been a pretty big success, and this article would help move it forward. So we hope you'll approve this motion tonight. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Carr?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Rita Carr, speaking on behalf of the Nantucket Preservation Trust, and I would encourage you to vote yes on this article. As Jason mentioned, we have been working with the Current to help publicize houses that are available to be moved, and it was at special town meeting in 2024 that my colleague Mary Bergman sponsored a citizens warrant article which amended this exact same part of the town code that extended the waiting period for a house that someone expressed interest in moving to 180 days, as it was formerly 60 days. So we believe that this article will help notices for houses that are available to be moved to reach a wider audience, especially with images. So I would encourage you to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Oliver?
Hi, real quick, I will tell you this is hugely successful. I see it come through HDC all the time. We want more people to know there are houses available. They don't go in the landfill. I personally was helping somebody move a cottage, and we got 15 responses in one night because it was posted on the Current. I urge you to vote for this.
Thank you. Ms. Sutton?
Hi, Campbell Sutton. I was just going to speak on this again. I spoke on it last year. In this particular case, having to do with demolition of buildings and really trying to get repurposing, I continue to believe that in this case, it should say in any print newspaper and electronic media. I think the assumption that everybody is on Nantucket Current that might be interested in this. In other words, I think we should be going for the broadest population or market possible, and I think that electronic media is very limiting. I don't think that everybody is on their phone all the time. I happen to work in the trade, so I actually work with my hands and my body, and I'm not on electronic media all the time, so if something pops up, I'm not going to see it. But I do read the paper every week, and I do look for the boxes, you know, that the town makes announcements in. And in this case, I just think it would be advantageous to have print newspaper and electronic media. I don't think that's too much of a hardship. So maybe I'm making an amendment to an amendment. Is that what I'm doing?
No, but hold on. Okay, what you're doing is amending a main motion. And your motion is to change the word "or" to "and."
Correct.
So that it reads, shall place a public notice in any print newspaper and electronic media having general circulation. Okay?
Yes.
Is there a second? Okay. Motion is made and seconded. Do you want to discuss your amendment, or have you kind of said what you had to say?
I think I sort of said it.
Okay.
But if anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right. Mr. Topham?
Now things not going to work. Okay. Yes, we took no action, the planning board. The reason being because if we put in the word "and," we thought that we were changing, or we were advised that we were changing the article too much. We felt it was too restrictive the way it was written with the word "or." So that's why we're hoping to come back next year, make sure that it canvassed every media outlet on Nantucket, because we would like to save houses as well. And we just felt that this was, one lane or the other, and we'd like everyone to be able to see this. So that's why we did this, ma'am.
Okay. So are you okay with this amendment?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, I just have to read it for a minute. Okay, I don't think just changing the word "and" is quite doing what you are asking. If you could look at this, Mr. Giorgio, I don't want them to have to put it in every single print newspaper and every single electronic media having circulation within the town. I think it should be if you want to have it in both, it should say, shall place a public notice in one print newspaper and one electronic media, if that's a thing. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't think the intent is to have it be in every single thing that's in circulation on Nantucket.
Madam Moderator, and I believe that's why it says any print newspaper. Here at this time on the island, we only have one. I don't know, maybe someone would put it in the Boston Globe, I'm not sure. But
One. It should say in one print newspaper and one electronic media. If you want them to do both, but not have to do all. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you say...
No, I understand what you're saying. I just...
Because, for example, I'm just going to tell you, the Cape Cod Times, is that what it's called? They don't have a huge circulation over here, but at one point they were considered to be a print newspaper having a general circulation within the town of Nantucket. And I don't think you want to force people to be advertising in the Yankee and in the Cape Cod Times and in any other newspaper having a general circulation within the town, as well as every single electronic media. I don't want to be arguing your thing with you, but I'm trying to get it right. And I think what you're trying to do is say, and I think what the planning board was trying to do was say, we want both. One print newspaper, one electronic media.
Well, then would we want to put, instead of crossing out local newspaper, do we want to make it one local newspaper and one local electronic media?
You don't need to, because you're saying having general circulation within the town of Nantucket.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So I think if it says, and Jeremy will type this, place a public notice in one print newspaper and one electronic media having general circulation within the town, then you've done it.
Okay, super. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Much appreciated.
Sure. Does anyone want to be heard further on this? Yes. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. That should be gone. Take out the any right there, so that it's, and put in like the actual word one instead. I know. And then if you want to be really fussy, we'll do one electronic medium instead of media. Is this just a cameo appearance on your part, Mr. Sanders? Or are you just lighting down for town meeting and eating a sandwich and going away? Okay, well, it's nice to see you. Okay, anything on this amendment? We're just talking about the amendment now.
Can I just say the planning board is in favor of this recommendation and change?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so on the amendment only, it requires a majority vote. A yes vote will adopt the amendment. A no vote will defeat the amendment. It's 1 for yes, 2 for no. Voting is now open. Voting is closed. On the amendment, yes, 298, no, 37. That is adopted. Okay, so now we're back on Article 39, the motion made by Mr. Graziadei as amended by Ms. Sutton, which is now on the screen. Seeing no one at the microphones, I think we can go to a vote. Now we're in zoning. You know that's my favorite part of the warrant. And it does, every single thing requires a 2/3 vote. It's gotten much easier now that we have these little babies. It will be yes is 1, 2 is no. A yes vote will adopt, a no vote will defeat, 2/3 vote. Voting is open. Voting is closed. Yes, 321, no, 18. That is adopted. Okay. Article 41 was called by Mr. McGowan. He's given me the universal, you don't want to go forward with it symbol, right? Does anyone wish to step into Mr. McGowan's shoes on Article 41? Okay. You want to go forward now? What happened to the... Okay. So, we're going to do Article 41. Things change so quickly here. Article 41 on page 48 of the warrant has a positive recommendation from the Planning Board as printed in the warrant. I'm going to recognize Mr. Iverson, Chair of the Planning Board, for the purpose of making that motion. Is there a second? Motion is made and seconded. Do you guys want to talk about this at all, or should I go right? Do you want to just tell people what it's about, Ms. Snow?
Right, Thank you and good evening, Madam Moderator and the voters. First of all, I'd like to thank all the voters for not calling a lot of the Planning Board articles. We had a lot of public hearings and had a lot of discussion, so thank you for your support on those. Article 41 is specific to rear lot subdivisions, which are only allowed in a handful of residential districts. They require the issuance of a special permit to allow the same number of lots that would have otherwise been allowed. However, they reduce required infrastructure and provide flexibility with design. This amendment would allow the Planning Board to consider the placement of year-round or attainable housing restrictions on any of the newly created lots. This is just another tool for the creation of year-round dwelling units, and I would ask that you support the Planning Board motion.
Thank you. Mr. McGowan? Sorry, it's really hot up here.
Good evening to the top 300 people who are making the decisions tonight. Thank you, Madam Moderator, and everyone for helping tonight. This particular article is brought to my attention because I feel it adds another level of handcuffs to subdividing a lot in your backyard. It takes a piece of property and it tells you what you can do with it. So the people in Nantucket, you're here. I've had my land for over 40 years, and this means that I have to add a consideration to it, or a consideration for my family down the road. So as I look at this particular case, I look at it pretty much as the Planning Board doing their job really well. I look at them and I thank them for taking the opportunity to create year-round housing. At the same time, I look at this and I say to myself, I'm looking to take a piece of property and pass it on to my children, and I want them to decide what they want to do with it. This article only represents one of the hands that have come out from the planning board in their stretch to create more housing on Nantucket. I believe that housing should be done by the town authorities, by the housing authority, and that the planning board should allow us people in Nantucket to be able to do what we want with our personal property. And I want my children to be able to do what they want with their property. So I'm here today to ask you to vote no for this particular article. And it's not because I don't want year-round housing. I'm actually looking for my children to stay here, but I want them to have the options to decide what they want for themselves and their families, and perhaps for you to consider what you want for yourselves and in the future for your families. I don't know what my granddaughter wants today, but I do know what I bought, what I've paid for, what I've worked for here in Nantucket, and I'd like to keep those rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Ferrantella?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Christy Ferrantella, Municipal Housing Director. I just wanted to clarify that this uses language that says the planning board may, which means it's open for the planning board to have the conversation with the homeowner or the person that's looking to subdivide. We need more tools in our toolbox. We are very, very thankful for all the funding that has been appropriated to the Affordable Housing Trust to create new affordable and attainable housing solutions, but funding is not being able to cover all of the need on the island, and we need zoning tools that creates these lots without spending our taxpayer dollars, and this is the perfect tool that would allow us to create new dwelling units that have either year-round or attainable restrictions on them when they come before the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mondani?
Hi, Jim Mondani. I am in support of Mr. McGowan's challenge to this. My concern is exactly what Christy just talked about, the word may. I hate the word may in our laws. It really, without any set of standards for the planning board to make this call. And it's subject to, the meeting of the week or the certain planning board. And I just don't like that word in there. So I would like people to vote it down.
Thank you. Ms. Rayport?
Yes, hello, Hillary Hedges Rayport. I'm a member of the planning board, so I wanted to contribute some additional context to why we voted to put this article on the warrant. To address Mr. Mondani's point, we could certainly change this to shall, but I don't think anybody would like that because that would mean every special permit for year-round for a rear lot subdivision required this. So that's why it says may. But I just want to address Mr. McGowan's comment, and I'm going to try not to get too, not to geek out about this. But basically, we have to follow the rules, right? So if you have a lot that meets all the requirements of our subdivision control law, you can subdivide your lot and you just come to the planning board and we endorse the plan. If you do not meet the requirements of the subdivision control law, you have to request waivers of the planning board, and we have to go through and look at all the waivers and decide whether or not we should grant them. And the standard by which we need to decide that is it in the public benefit for us to grant the waivers? And we have to decide amongst ourselves and in consultation with our staff if it meets public benefit. And then we grant the waiver if we feel like it's in harmony with the zoning bylaw and there's public benefit, because otherwise we have to follow the law. And so at that point, you have a subdivision, if we've granted it, then you come back for a rear lot subdivision. Having this tool allows us to find public benefit and grant the waivers and grant a subdivision on a property that otherwise cannot be subdivided according to our laws. So rather than see this as a penalty, please see it as a benefit, because it helps us help the community in a really important way and helps us create more lots. So we really need this because we are running out of land. So please vote yes on this article. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lowell?
Are you ready?
I'm trying to be.
Marty, I love you, you know. 1977, he taught me how to cut hedge. Nobody cut hedge as good as Marty other than Earl Coffin. What Hillary said is true. Nat Lowell just said that. What Hillary said is true. But let me give it a little bit different spin on this whole thing so we all understand it in a different kind of way. So the real lot subdivision is a special permit, requires 4 votes. This is not a by right. What Hillary was talking about was an A&R subdivision. When you have frontage and you meet all the subdivision control law standards, bing, bang, see you later. No one can say no to that. You can do whatever you want, sell it to the richest person that will pay you the most money. But the real lot subdivision gives a huge benefit to existing developed properties that, for example, where the building's built in the wrong place, people don't have the money to move it, or the lot's really narrow and long and stupid looking. Yes, it could be an A&R, but who wants to have this little strip next to another little strip, right? So the real lot provides the ability to subdivide your lot in a way that makes it much better for the homeowner, for the person that may be benefiting from these lots. So when you look at these, and we look at these lots, a year-round market rate house on Nantucket right now is probably about $2.5 million. Is a good deal. My father's just turned over in his grave right now, selling all his land for next to nothing. And a lot of other people have family members in this room right now that did the same thing. So I don't feel bad for someone that has to sell something at market rate on Nantucket for year-round ownership. Also, there's other things that we can do depending, again, on what's already on the lot.
If you could wrap up, please.
Is the covenant program. There's a lot of ability with certain dwellings that are already built that could be carved out as a covenant, and that's it. So if when the owners agree to that, that's the kind of thing we're trying to be able to make happen. But it's all voluntary right now. This is not going to negatively affect people's values or their ability to subdivide under most circumstances. This is usually something that the owner already wants because it's going to make the lot or the lots they're creating much more conforming to what they should look like, especially with what's already on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can go to a vote on Article 41. The motion is the planning board's motion as printed on page 48 of the warrant. It does require a 2/3 vote. A yes vote will adopt the motion. A no vote will defeat the motion. It's 1 for yes, 2 for no, and voting is open. Okay, on the motion 239, yes. 99, no. That motion is adopted by a 2/3 vote. Okay. Article 44 is on page 70. It has a positive motion from the planning board, a motion to support the planning board from the finance committee, and I'm going to recognize Mr. Iverson for the purpose of making the motion as printed in the warrant. Is there a second? Motion is made and seconded. And this was called by you, Mr. Mondani. Do you guys want to say anything about this, or should I go right to Mr. Mondani? Ms. Snell?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This article only changes the threshold for attainable housing from 240% to 250%. This is consistent with changes in state law for seasonal communities. This is also consistent with Article 66, which was not called by this body last night, that changes the declaration of trust for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So by approving this article, you would make the zoning consistent with the Affordable Housing Trust regulations. Please support this article.
Thank you. Mr. Mondani?
Yeah, I think we could possibly dispense with this. It's more of a point of order, and I think it's clarified, but you tell me. When I looked at the law, or tried to find the law that it was amending, I couldn't find it. And I still can't find it. So I think what Ms. Snell, the way she explained it is, it's kind of in limbo. We passed the law in 2025, and it's sitting on the AG's desk, is my understanding. So how do we deal with that? We're amending something that we don't know what the rest of the law says.
Okay. So I think, Mr. Giorgio, that what Mr. Mondani is getting at is that in 2025, we enacted a definition of attainable housing that is a definition that's added to Section 2 of Chapter 139. And that section is apparently still up at, is it still up at the Attorney? No, it's been approved by the Attorney General, but our code consultants haven't updated the code.
Yes.
So if you look at Chapter 139 of the Code of the Town of Nantucket online, you will not find the definition of attainable housing.
Correct.
The only way you can find, well, there's a couple ways you can find it, but the way that you would find the definition at the moment of attainable housing is you'd go down to the town clerk's office and you'd say, I'd like to get a copy of all the articles that were approved by the Attorney General, and they would give it to you. At some point, the code will be updated. I don't know when that will be. Do you know when that will be, Nancy? Oh, that's what's holding it up? Okay, so apparently the approval of Article 1 from the special town meeting is holding up the code update. And the attorney, they do it once a year. So they're waiting for the Attorney General to rule on Article 1 from the fall's annual special town meeting, which should happen in the next 30 days, right? Within the next 30 days. So we have the definition. It's just a little harder to find than would probably be ideal.
Exactly, and I'm on the zoning board, and if I don't know what the zoning laws are, we need to know what the laws are so we can break them. I mean, how do we know that if we don't break them? I mean, it's a problem that we should identify it and put the original or the past definition. Otherwise,
the past definition is what's shown there. Scroll down just a little bit, Jeremy, please. That definition right there, dwelling units restricted to occupancy by households who earn at or below 240% of the median annual household income for Nantucket County. I think that's the definition. There may be more to it at the end.
Yeah.
But, okay, I get your point.
So I will withdraw it.
I mean, I think we should probably just go ahead and vote on the motion on Article 44, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I support it.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else want to be heard on Article 44? Sorry for all that getting in the weeds on the zoning code. It's the kind of stuff I live for. Seriously, it's really sad. Okay, so we're going to vote on the main motion on Article 44. It is as printed in the warrant shown on the screen. A yes vote will adopt that motion. A no vote will defeat the motion. It's 1 for yes, 2 for no. It is zoning, so it does require 2/3. Voting is now open. Voting is closed. On the motion, 299 yes, 40 no. That motion is adopted by a 2/3 vote. Okay. Article 45. Article 45 is on page 71 of the warrant. The motion is as printed in the warrant. There's a Finance Committee comment supporting the Planning Board motion. Recognize Mr. Iverson for the purpose of making the Planning Board's motion as printed in the warrant. Is there a second? Motion is made and seconded. Ms. Snell, did you want to, or Ms. Trudell, give us just 2 seconds?
Hi. So the Planning Board submitted this on behalf of the Community Land Trust, so we would defer to Arthur Reed or Tucker Holland to support this article and go ahead and give a summary.
Okay. What do you think, Tucker? No? Okay. Mr. Mondani.
Thank you. This is a little more substantive than the last one, but there are issues with definitions in here as well. We define terms that I don't even know where they are in we reference the zoning article. Again, you know, this is actually part of the reason why on the cannabis issue with one of our purveyors, I think the zoning enforcement officer looked at the wrong regulations. That's at the state level, but I'm concerned that we're amending laws that we don't know what we're amending. But in this case, my concern, and I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, and I probably should have gotten involved in this earlier, but like everyone, I read the warrant a couple days ago. And my issue is that we're forming another entity to address affordable housing. It's a different type, but it's really the same. I counted up, there are at least 6 public or private entities on island now that have some part of their mission and are taking funds to promote affordable housing. I thought it was 5. I actually found out it was 6 at last night's meeting with the Education Trust. But in any case, this will be number 7. And my concern about this is I'm not sure we have it down with the existing 6. This is duplicative in a lot of ways. There's these funds get handed to these organizations and it waterfalls through and we pay the administrative expenses of just like all the other 6. There's really no practical reason to form this new entity. It also doesn't make sense to include it in the zoning bylaw. We have the Affordable Housing Trust, which is formed under state law, and all the other housing authorities are just a private 501c3. So I'm not sure why we're recognizing this in this case, and again, including in the zoning bylaw. What really concerns me is that we're talking about a private organization, and nonprofit gives me no assurances. Once it's private, and all nonprofit means is they can't retain earnings, which means they got to spend everything. And it was an existential risk of ours by handing out all this money, but it became a reality with Wiggles Way. And to me, it was unconscionable what happened there. And we went from $13 million to $22 million. And that was only because some of the subs, which are local businesses, had to take a haircut so that we didn't continue to go over budget. And that's a function of oversight. And when it comes to a private organization managing the funds that we commit to as a public body, things like this happen. And I'm not, everybody can draw their own conclusions on this. I'm not pointing fingers, but we have another organization now. And I applaud Tucker, I applaud everybody that's involved in this, but they're very myopic. And when we give them $130 million, which is what we have over the past 5 or 6 years, they're going to spend it. And that's a lot of money. And there's a lot of people that are circling around that know there's a lot of money. And if we don't have the capability to oversee this, it's going to continue again. And we don't need another organization. The other organizations can handle this. I really don't see the point. And if anything, I'm asking this body to call a timeout and not pass this, and let's put together some more defining regulations or oversight of these monies once they go to a private organization. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think there's a little confusion there about the town and the Affordable Housing Trust and what they do, and the Community Land Trust, which is a new private 501c3. And we're not creating it. It has been created by private individuals and with private support. So maybe what I can do is, I thought this may be helpful. So Article 45 is simply a way to expand home ownership opportunities for year-rounders. There is no increase in density or change to ground cover in doing this. Importantly, there is no funding associated with Article 45. Our Community Land Trust is about home ownership to serve the missing middle: police, fire, DPW, teachers, nurses, and more. People who make too much to qualify for traditional affordable housing, yet are essential to our community. Community land trusts have been effective in creating homeownership opportunities across the country. You can look next door at Martha's Vineyard, where they've been doing it for 20 years. The Nantucket Land Trust received its 501c3 approval on March 9th of this year. We already have several projects before us. both creating new homes as well as repurposing existing inventory. And I guess to comment a little bit on efficiency, one of these opportunities would provide double the number of bedrooms for less than the money we appropriated last night for the town housing, which I very much support. But just to get to Mr. Mondani's point about efficiency, the Nantucket Land Trust is formed under the provision of lessening the burdens of government, fully aligning it with housing goals of the town and the Affordable Housing Trust. In short, the Land Trust is about looking after our own, the people who make this island what it is, keeping folks here who were not lucky enough to be given land or who did not have the opportunity to buy before 2010. By voting for this article, or simply a definition, you are expanding homeownership opportunities to your fellow year-rounders.
Thank you. Mr. Reed?
Thank you. I am a board member of the Nantucket Land Trust, the organization that Mr. Holland was speaking about. And as he indicated, this article does not involve any expenditure of funds by the town. It only relates to the operation of the land trust with regard to zoning issues involving property that it may own. And specifically, one of the concepts that we have is the idea of this organization owning land and providing houses on the land that it owns leased to long-term owners. They would own the houses subject to land leases, 99-year leases that would enable them to have the benefits of home ownership of the land. Make a long story short, the point here is that there are several circumstances in which that we can have 2 or 3 houses on a lot that would be owned by individuals. And again, the emphasis on this will be people who are town employees or other key members of the community who exceed the limits for affordable housing, but who can't afford, when they've come into their jobs in Nantucket, the exorbitant prices of Nantucket real estate. And this will enable different houses on the same lot, when it's done through the land trust, to be owned by different individuals. There is no cost to the town, there's no effect on the tax base of any of this. It's the same number of houses that would otherwise be allowed on the lot. It simply allows for them to be separately owned and for the trust to provide the opportunity for this kind of housing to additional qualified individuals and families who need it. So I would strongly encourage you to vote for this article. It's a positive thing for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, up in the back.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Galen Gardner. I find these zoning articles every year that we come to town meeting to be completely just mumbo jumbo. It's really hard for an average person working full time to understand most of them. This one, I would say I liked what Mr. Mamdani had to say about it, and I would agree with a lot of what he said. I feel like housing groups end up becoming juggernauts, and it's politically incorrect to ever say no to them. As a taxpayer, it's really hard to try and keep all these organizations straight. I don't have any personal vendetta against them, but I do feel that I would need to go back to grad school to just understand each and every one of them and what they're doing. I wouldn't say that we need another. There's a lot of groups that say they're trying to help the missing middle, and the missing middle is a big new buzzword within the community of, or the family of housing groups. I feel like I am that person, okay? I luckily inherited from my dad when he passed away. The town benefited from getting Gardner Farm to walk on and enjoy, hunt, fish, do whatever they want. And due to personal circumstances, it's been very hard for me to hang on to what I have. So when Marty, unfortunately, I had to use the restroom, but when Marty McGowan got up and spoke about how nice it would be to be able to have some form of real lot subdivision for people that are locals who've been around forever and watch everybody else get a helping hand, but you don't. And, you know, where do we go when at this point in my life, I can't do the physical labor I used to do. I'm semi-retired. Thank God I have a short-term rental, otherwise I would have been gone years ago. And I do have a son, and I would like to, you know, have something go to him. But I find myself in the position of feeling like I don't know if I can hold on that long. And it's sad that my son would say to me, Mom, I don't want you to have to work your fingers to the bone and fall by the wayside and die early because you're working so hard to just hand me a house when you die. And I think that I had a recent conversation with Stephen Morey about the idea of aging in place and how hard it is for local people to actually do that, okay? So if you're lucky enough to have been given something, that's not the end of the story. I was given something, but due to personal circumstances that many of you in this room know, it's been really, really hard for me. Right. So I just think that I don't think we need another group like this. I would really advocate for looking at the missing middle. A lot of the people that I know are people just in my same position, and they're trying to stay.
Thank you.
So thanks, and sorry to be so lengthy.
Ms. Longacre?
I hope the planning board will correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a definition of something that already exists. It will allow us to regulate it in the manner in which is appropriate for that kind of organization. This, if I may say politely, has nothing to do with anybody's personal story. There is no funding. There is no promise of funding. This is about regulating an organization in an appropriate manner when no other organization of this type has existed before. So we need to add a definition to the zoning code so that we can address it appropriately. That's all this is. The organization already exists. This doesn't create it. This doesn't prevent it from doing anything that it's trying to do. It allows the town to regulate it. That's all it is.
I see heads being shaken yes over there, so yes. Thank you. Mr. DaCosta?
I'm going to try to clarify this, and I'd like either Tucker or Arthur to tell me if I'm right or wrong, the way I understand this. But this is a situation where it's a nonprofit who's going to obtain property, whatever way they do. They're going to put up dwellings on it. They're going to give 99-year leases to the individuals who buy those dwellings for the land only. They'll buy the property at what it costs to build the property, the house. They will live in that house year-round. If they live there for 5 years or 10 years, there'll be something in place that they can only sell the house for X amount per year over how long they live there, so that they can't make a huge windfall on it. But this is for teachers, doctors, firemen, policemen, nurses, whoever. It just gives us, by putting this zoning article in place, it makes it easier for that individual who's going to get that particular house, whether there might be 2 or 3 houses on that lot, the ability to obtain a mortgage for the dwelling. Am I correct, Arthur?
Absolutely right, as he normally is about just about everything.
Thank you, Arthur.
Go ahead, Ms. Ferrantella.
Thank you. Christy Ferrantella, Municipal Housing Director. I just wanted to give a concrete example of how this could be used. And as many of you know, in the community, the Affordable Housing Trust is working right now with the Nantucket Land Bank at a property at 158 Nantucket Road. The project is to move 3 existing dwellings onto land at 158 Nantucket, and the only way in our current zoning bylaw to separate ownership is through 2 covenants and a quote market rate or 1 restricted unit. What we've heard a lot from the community is they make just over that 150%. So we have no choice but to do 2 restricted and 1 unrestricted. This basically creates the tool that you can create 3 restricted at different AMI levels, or whatever the community land trust deems the highest level. So I just kind of want to put that into context for an example of it's really a definition that says our zoning already allows 3 homes, you just can't separate that ownership, and this allows that separate ownership. The only other way to go forward with this is through a condo, and those are really difficult for homeowners to insure, and we're hearing this as we're creating more condos around the island, and that is something that just makes homeownership harder for our community members. So this is just a win-win across the board, and I encourage you to support it.
Thank you. Are you at a microphone or are you? No. Okay. Mr. Mondani?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. Just a couple of responses here. I'm not against this program at all. I am in favor of it, and I once again applaud everybody involved with pursuing affordable housing. They do a great job, and we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't their job to doggedly pursue these options, and they're creative, and I like it. I just don't understand why we need to form another entity needs to be formed. And don't get me wrong, they can form an entity. They're an entity, just like the other 6 or the other private ones. So nothing's prohibiting that. They can do what they want to do. I just am concerned about the oversight of another private organization, because this is what you rely on with a private nonprofit. You wait for them to file a tax form, and they might be late. The current organization that managed Wiggles Way is only updated to 2004, so I don't even know how they spent the money. And we have no oversight over that, and no audit rights. With what happened in Wiggles Way, all that was said by members of our select board was, we learned from our mistakes. And we have no recourse there. And learning from your mistakes involves,
if you could,
involves going back and looking over this and auditing it. And they are outside the procurement rules, which are good for some reason, but there's a reason for procurement rules. One of them is that if you say you're going to build a place for $12 million, you can't come back.
I think we're drifting.
Okay. I just think that all these organizations that exist can provide this function without a new one.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson?
I would just like to point out that this trust is not going to use public funds. So Mr. Mondani seems to be concerned about oversight of public funding when that's not an issue here. Okay, this is another tool for us to use to create housing for us. Okay, the more tools we have, the more housing we can create for us as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holland?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Just very quickly, Mr. Mondani is correct. We don't have to do this. The Nantucket Land Trust can still operate, and we're going to do things. The question really is, do you want the Land Trust to have the opportunity to create 3 homeownership opportunities for year-rounders, where otherwise it could just be 1? And Ms. Ferrantella addressed that it's not one size fits all when it comes to year-rounders in the missing middle. Not everyone is at the 150% AMI level. This would give the opportunity to fine-tune better. And the 150 program is a great program, but it would give us the opportunity to fine-tune better to what our community is. And I'm not going to take the time here at town meeting, but what we're doing actually could help you, Ms. Gardner. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to a vote. Oops. Go ahead, up there in the back. Ms. Benz.
I'd like to move the question.
Oh, you're moving the question. We're just going to go to a vote. I think we're ready to vote. So this requires a 2/3 vote. It will be 1 for yes, 2 for no. We're voting on the motion. Article 45, as printed in the warrant, requires 2/3, 1 for yes, 2 for no. Voting is open. We have 3 articles left, 51, 72, and 73. Voting is closed. On the motion, 289 yes, 68 no. Could you give me the percentages? That is adopted by a 2/3 vote. Okay. We're almost done with zoning. Article 51 starts on page 80, goes to page 81, then to page 82, and then to page 83, and then to page 84. The motion, planning board motion, starts on page 82. It is as printed in the warrant. There is a finance committee comment on page 84 supporting the planning board motion. There's also a planning board comment with explanations. I will recognize Chair Iverson for the purpose of making the planning board motion as printed in the warrant. Is there a second? Motion is made and seconded. This was called by Mr. Lang, who's down here. Shall I go right to him? Ms. Snell, do you want to?
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and I apologize for not introducing myself earlier. I'm Leslie Snell. I'm the Director of Planning. This Article 51 amends the second dwelling definition. It's part of integrating the accessory dwelling units, which are required by state law. You approved several of those articles yesterday. Changes to this definition clarify the size of the secondary dwelling unit, and it adds density restrictions in certain zoning districts, which is language carried over from the tertiary dwelling definition, which was removed. Most importantly, it makes changes to the use chart to maintain current density allowances in all zoning districts and to not allow additional units as a result of the accessory dwelling allowance. I would ask that you please support the planning board motion.
Before you sit down, I think maybe you should tell people what the accessory dwelling unit allowance is, because a lot of people won't know that.
Okay. In a nutshell, the accessory dwelling unit is an allowance under MGL 40A Section 3 in state law. It's somewhat zoning exempt, and it can have a gross floor area of up to 900 square feet or 50% of the gross floor area of the primary dwelling unit. It's allowed in any zoning district where single-family dwellings are allowed. In this case, the secondary dwelling would have to be more than 900 square feet so that there's a distinction between the accessory dwelling unit allowed under state law and the secondary dwelling unit allowed under our local zoning.
Great, thank you. Mr. Lang.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and thank you all for listening. I am proposing an amendment to the article, and that is that in paragraph 2, shown in 7A, called the use chart, it lists as a district residential old historic, ROH.
It's right at the end. Right there, okay. It's amending section 7A use chart as follows for second dwelling, and it's changing yes to no for the zones R1, SR1, ROH, SOH, SR20, VR, CDT, RC, and RC2.
Correct. My motion, my amendment is that we strike ROH from that list, thereby continuing to allow the yes on the use chart for having secondary dwelling in the residential old historic district. It is my feeling, my belief, that Article 51 is flawed and that
Before you go on, Mr. Lang, so your amendment, let me just get the amendment on the floor.
thank
Your
you.
amendment is to strike, are you striking ROH and SOH or just ROH?
just ROH.
Okay, so you're striking ROH. Is there a second? Okay, so that motion is made and seconded. Now you can go ahead and give your rationale.
Okay. First of all, let me introduce myself a little bit. My name is Bob Lang. I have lived on Nantucket for 53 years. I am living on Plum Lane in the downtown area. I purchased that home 4 years ago. I believe that the problem here is that my dwelling, my property, which is an oversized lot, slightly oversized lot for the ROH district, being over 5,000 square feet, meets all of the requirements that are called for a secondary dwelling. I believe that this article is in conflict with Article 48 because that they are very different articles in the sense that Article 48 is based on the amount of living space within the home and how much you could do with a secondary dwelling, with the accessory dwelling, as they call it. Whereas Article 51 deals with the percentage of the ground cover. So one is based on living space within the primary dwelling, another one is based on the size of the footprint of the primary dwelling. So let me just go through a couple of things here to tell you what I have before me. The ground cover ratio in the ROH is 40%. Okay, I have a house which occupies 23%, 23.18% of the property, which means that in order to come up to 40%, I would be allowed another 16 point something percent. I meet the ground cover ratio for the project that I would like to do, which would be a secondary dwelling with a garage unit in it. Now that they have stricken the definition of garage apartment, essentially what I would like to build is a garage apartment there. Article 41, which we passed, doesn't even mention garage once in its text. Article 51 wants to effectively do away with secondary dwellings in the old historic district. My 40% ground cover ratio, I have a 1,254 square foot house. The 40% ground cover ratio, the allowable is 2164. The existing dwelling, as I said, is 1254, which means that I could add on a second dwelling another 910 square foot ground cover, not based on living space. That means that 910 or 909 square feet is still allowable and I would still be within the 40%. The existing gross floor area, according to tax records from the assessor's office for my property, for both floors, is 1,464 square feet. If I were to use the Article 41 provision, I would only be able to build approximately 732 square feet of living space, which would be the size of a tiny apartment, possibly less if the records are not quite right. The house ground cover, let's see, I did that. The 20, what I could do, all right, so in terms of under Article 51, I would be able to build something that is 20% smaller, or it must be 20% smaller or 20% larger than the primary dwelling. I can do better than that. My property is large enough that I could do 27.5% less than the ground cover of the primary dwelling. Ironically, that comes out to 909 square feet. So 910 square feet is what I would be allowed to build on the ground, okay? And interior space could be beyond that.
Thank you. If you could wrap up, please.
Okay, just one more thing. When I bought this property, first of all, let me say that having lived here on the island a long time, I have also raised two children, two girls, who were born and raised here on Nantucket. It is my intention and my hope that at some point in time, when I pass away, that they will be able to have the Plum Lane property. What would be the best situation is that if either I was able to construct a garage apartment on the property, or if they were able to do so later. So that is my wish to pass along to my children. Thank you all very much for listening.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, and then.
Point here is that this article is eliminating the ability in all of the smaller zoning districts, including ROH, to have secondary dwellings. Now, the concept obviously is you can have an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, so eliminate the need thereby for a secondary dwelling. The problem in practice, as this works out, is that when you work out the math on a situation like Mr. Lang's, it puts him in a much worse position than is now in and would expect to be in, and was certainly expecting to be in when he bought his property. Because by virtue of the fact that he has a small house, it's a historic house, and it does not lend itself to being altered. And the size of the house is such that because the limitation on the maximum gross floor area of an ADU is 50% of the existing house, or 900, whichever is less, not whichever is more, and that's state law. The result is that he winds up with a very small ability to build a secondary dwelling, or ADU, as it would wind up being, which I think is unfair, and I don't think is what was thought about or intended in connection with this article. This applies not just in ROH, but in the other districts where secondary dwellings are now being prohibited. I also find, I'll come back on the main article on this, because we're now on, strictly speaking, on Mr. Lang's motion. But I would urge the meeting to take into consideration the fact that this creates in ROH, which is the only thing you have before you right now, the ability to have anything more than 1/2 of the gross floor area of the existing dwelling. And again, I think that's not the intended result. I think is unfair, and I think is a unintended result of the article as submitted.
Thank you. Ms. Trudell?
Megan Trudell, Deputy Planning Director. I just want to make sure everyone's clear that if these use chart changes are not approved, it would allow for 3 dwelling units in these districts that currently only contemplate 2. So I'm not advocating for or against. I just think it's important that you recognize that.
Thank you. Ms. Benz?
I wonder if you could clarify, if you eliminate that entire ROH and SOH is about the same anyway, how many lots are affected by this removal?
All of them. I don't know. Ms. Trudell?
I can't tell you how many lots offhand are in these districts, but it would extend to all of the lots listed in these districts.
Every lot in each of these districts?
That's correct. With the exception of the CDT, RC, and RC2 change, that is just a technical matter. You can no longer have a primary dwelling in those districts, so it wouldn't apply anyhow.
Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Benz, that probably doesn't help you much.
Well, I just wondered how many, I don't want to call them loopholes, but how many opportunities this will create for more footprints on those lots, which are already rather congested.
I think the point is it's not a question really of ground cover. What's happened, if I can explain, is that the state enacted this provision that allows by right an ADU. And we're not able to stop anyone from having an ADU in any zone anywhere that allows residential use. So suddenly, it didn't take into account communities like Nantucket where we already had secondary and tertiary dwellings. So suddenly we have zones like the ROH and some of these others where you could currently have a primary and a secondary. Now you can have a primary, a secondary, and an ADU. And if we don't make a change, then we're going to be seeing potentially 3 dwellings per lot in all of these zones. Now, they are going to be limited by, in ROH, the 40% ground cover. That isn't done away with. So you're never going to have more than 40% ground cover in the ROH unless you already have it. But you could have 3 dwellings as opposed to 2. And I think what this article attempts to do is limit the density back to the 2 dwellings, but the effect that it's having on people like Mr. Lang, as Mr. Reed was pointing out, the ADU is limited to 900 square feet of gross floor area, which is a different concept from ground cover, which is square footage on the ground. So you could have if you had a 900 square foot house with ground cover, it could conceivably have 1,800 square feet of gross floor area. With an ADU, it's 900 square feet of gross floor area. So it's either 900 on the ground or 450 and 450 and so what's happening is by limiting the number of dwellings to a primary and an ADU, in Mr. Lang's case, it's severely limiting the size of the second structure that he can have.
Another unintended
Mr.
effect,
Reed.
Yes, thank you. Another unintended effect of this is that if Mr. Lang were to add on to his existing house, the size of the ADU that he would be able to build would be larger. So this is actually an incentive to someone to increase the ground cover, to increase the floor area of their existing structure in order to be able to build a bigger secondary structure, which runs contra every zoning land preservation idea I've ever heard of. It doesn't help Mr. Lang much. even if he had the money to do all of the improvements that this would entail, to have this ability to add on to his existing house, which he has plenty of ground cover to be able to do with, by the way, because it's a historic house. And it doesn't, as I said earlier on, doesn't lend itself to being enlarged. But in many cases, you're going to be forcing people, in order to have the size of secondary dwelling, or ADU, that they would want to have, couldn't be over 900 square feet anyway, they would have to increase intensity by adding on to their existing houses. This is insanity.
Ms. Benz?
May I ask one more question, because it relates to something that is also in this article that I was going to question, and it has to do with the number of bedrooms. It's, let's see if you have yes, right there. And so, if you have, the way I'm reading that, if you have an R5 house, you can have, and that is for the primary and the secondary dwelling, right? And I don't know if that should be, it says per lot.
That's right.
But 5 bedrooms for an R5, which is 5,000 square feet. And then it is 7 bedrooms for 10,000 square feet. And 8 bedrooms, not more than 8 bedrooms, for 20,000 square foot. And I'm wondering how all of that is going to be reconciled with the ADU if you have, you know, the opportunity for 3 dwellings on the house, so on the lot. So that was a question I was going to ask in follow-up, but it is a very complex, it seems to be a very complex issue, and then going on to change the use chart makes it even more complicated.
Thank you. On just back to let's just try to talk to the amendment, striking ROH, Ms. Sutton.
Yes, I just have one question on striking the ROH, because in listening to Mr. Reed, it sounds like this is a much larger issue. And I'm wondering if what we're trying to do is change the ROH specifically for this one individual, for this one purpose. Because that's what it's sounding like, though Mr. Reed is making it sound more global, which seems like it would, you know, address other areas. So I'm getting a little confused because he's talking broadly speaking, which would, you know, affect more of these zones that are being included. However, Mr. Lang, who wants to amend it, is speaking just for himself on this one ROH piece. So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. You're right. Ms. Trudell?
I was just here to answer Ms. Benz's question.
I think Mr. Allerham behind you maybe wants to speak.
Could Mr. Lang ask for an exemption?
No, he couldn't, because it's being stricken from the use chart, and exemptions from use require a variance, and our bylaw provides no variances for uses.
The other question I would have is which portion of this is the, when it comes to the variance, et cetera, is in the state's definition that's sort of driving this ADU piece? Because it was just asked if he could ask for a exemption.
Right.
But if it's from this, if these definitions are coming down from the state, then at a local level, are you actually allowed to, would you even be allowed to give an exemption locally.
By variance, but not as to use. Mr. Reed, do you want to
Okay.
speak to that?
Thank you.
I think the moderator is right. It would be a use variance if it's not a permitted, if a secondary dwelling is not a permitted use in the district. It would be a use variance which is prohibited locally by our bylaw, and that we don't have anything in the town meeting warrant this year that would eliminate that. So the result would be that it would be impossible for him to obtain a variance under our bylaw.
Correct. Ms. Benz, on the amendment?
Well, following up on what the other speaker just said, in any other circumstance, would this not be considered spot zoning?
No, because while he's only personally interested in his own situation, he is eliminating the entire zone, not his particular lot. So it's affecting the entire zone, so it's not a spot. I think we could probably vote on Mr. Lang's amendment, which is to strike ROH. Yes. On the size of the ADU.
That is not something that's waivable by variance. That's written in the state regulations.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson?
Thought I was getting the Nat Lowell treatment, but.
No. No.
I just want to, from a board level, let people understand where our thought process was on this. Is that even though most of people don't believe that we do hear that this town doesn't want more density. And we take that into the decisions we make on the board. And this is one of them. From what we've heard from the community on a pretty regular basis is we don't want more. And so our concern here was that the residents in the ROH don't want 3 dwellings on a piece of property. They haven't had that right before. And so we weren't going to create a situation where there would be more density and more dwellings in the ROH. The state, unfortunately, has put our backs against the wall. We've gotten mixed messages from the states about what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. In debates in our meetings, and I think we're getting there, is the thought that after this meeting and after passing this, that next year we would come back with the ability to expand the ADU, maybe through special permit, maybe not. The state isn't really clear, but hopefully through a special permit, which would enable to enlarge it to a 1,200 square foot living area. So that's really where our heads were at the planning board, and I would urge the voters, and I do feel for Mr. Lang, but I really think that 3 dwellings on each lot in the ROH is not a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Report?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add to what Chair Iverson said about this. I really hope that we can vote no on this amendment, not because I don't want to have some larger ADUs in the old historic district. When we had this discussion, I advocated for that, and we just needed a little more time, and we needed to do the right thing for this year. So I think you can see that we'll come back next year with a process to have a larger ADU in these zones when your ground cover allows. I think that makes a ton of sense. There was never any desire to eliminate, to have the traditional secondary dwelling. It's just that because the way we had to implement the ADU is that we had to replace the tertiary dwelling with an ADU. And again, I don't want to geek out on all of that, but that's why we ended up here. It's not forever. Mr. Lang, if you could make your plan, come to the planning board in the next year, I think we'll come back with a solution that will make you happy. But if we pass this now, I think you're going to wish you didn't live in the ROH, because there are going to be a lot of buildings and a lot of density, and we know how these buildings get used, and I think it's really going to be bad for the community overhaul. So that's why I would urge everyone to vote no on this amendment, and let's get it right the next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so on Mr. Lang's amendment, it requires a majority vote. A yes vote will adopt the amendment. A no vote will defeat the amendment. The amendment is to strike ROH from section 2 so that it would remain a yes as opposed to being moved to a no. 1 for yes, 2 for no, majority vote. Voting is open. Voting is closed. On Mr. Lang's motion to amend, 50 yes, 294 no. That is not adopted. So on the main motion, as printed in the warrant and made by the planning board, yes, up in the back. Yes.
Just in
if
brief.
you could just say your name.
I'm Lark Jacobs, lived on the island for over 30 years now in Wisconsin. I'm just a little conflicted and confused, and I too don't want to see anything change in the historic district and our, density-wise, et cetera. You look at some of these beautiful communities in Boston, and each house has 3 different entrances, and they have, addressed some of the housing issues that way. At the same time that we're carving out properties and allowing 3 different ownerships, which I think is terrific, we're doing the opposite in this gesture here, as my understanding. Aren't we? I know I'm trying to work this out in my own head. I mean, the difference between density for small options for people who might be individuals who is a teacher or whoever, having more availability rather than these ginormous houses with 10 bedrooms and pools, right? We need more small houses. We need more small units. So I'm not even making a statement or a push one way or the other so much, but it just seems like this goes the wrong direction maybe. Insofar as the thinking that we don't want more density, which I agree with, but it also is in direct conflict with our housing issue. For smaller units, not a giant. No teacher is going to move into a $10 million home, right, with 10 bedrooms. So I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. I'm sorry, it's probably not helpful.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Jeff Booms, 14 Woodland Drive. I'd like some clarification. Is this eliminating secondary dwellings throughout the island? I mean, I see it in R20, R40, Lug 1, Lug 2. Could somebody clarify? Is this eliminating the secondary dwellings in all those other areas?
This is not eliminating second dwellings in the R5, R10, R20, R40, Lug 1, Lug 2, Lug 3. You can still proceed with a primary, a secondary, and an ADU. This is eliminating second dwellings in districts where today you can currently only have 2 dwelling units. So instead of a second dwelling unit, you would proceed with a protected use ADU.
So let's say SR20, if there's a small house on a half-acre lot.
That's correct. Today you can have 2 dwellings. in SR 20, and as written in this article, it would eliminate the potential for a third dwelling in that district.
So if we have a 750 square foot house, we have another ground cover for 14 or 1,500 square feet, we wouldn't be able to build our secondary dwelling.
It would become your primary, and your primary would become your ADU.
But our ADU would be, our current dwelling would be bigger than what's allowed.
Oh, it's bigger than the 900 square feet?
Well, it's either half. So if we were to do 1,200, that would be 6. So that if we added on a
Got it.
primary at 1,200, our current house is 750. That wouldn't be allowed.
That's correct.
That's extremely difficult for many of us.
And I think that's what Chair Iverson was getting to with possible adjustments to the language of the protected use ADU at next year's town meeting. Unfortunately, the way the state regulations are currently written and the advice we've been given by EOHLC and the Attorney General's office was that it needs to be limited to the 900 square feet. Just based on conversations that we've had with them, I see there may be some flexibility of that coming in the upcoming year or two, but for today's purposes, it is limited to the 900 square feet or half the gross floor area of the primary dwelling.
I personally would find it very unacceptable with this being completely unknown. Many of us that have bought a small house that with the intention of building another house on the property, and this eliminates that. Doesn't make it possible. So I'm very concerned about that. I would be voting no.
Thank you. Ms. Benz?
Go back to, if I could, to the question I had about the number of bedrooms. Now, the way that paragraph reads, it is
That's a per lot.
per lot, but it specifically says, it's referring to secondary dwellings. Both dwelling units shall be in the same ownership, and goes on down. In those three districts, R5, R10, R20, and it does limit the number of bedrooms, as I said, 5 in R5, which is one bedroom for 5,000 square foot, goes up to 7 for 10,000 square feet, and it goes up to 8 for 20,000 square feet. Where does the ADU fit into that?
So I can
Go ahead.
respond to that, and I may ask Building Commissioner Murphy to further
Could you
expand.
speak up, please?
I can respond to that, and I may ask Building Commissioner Murphy to further expand. This language was carried over from the tertiary dwelling language. You cannot restrict the primary dwelling or the protected use ADU, so the planning board felt it was important to include some oversight of density restrictions in the second dwelling, because that is now the only dwelling unit that you can place these sorts of parameters on. In a situation where this may not fit, you can obtain a special permit through the planning board, but this applies only to the second dwelling when one is applied for, so not to the primary or to the protected use ADU. So it would be the total bedroom count looking at the primary dwelling and the secondary dwelling.
Will there be modifications made for the ADU? I mean, is it just for the primary and secondary, and then you can build an ADU and it has 6 bedrooms?
Yes, the bedroom limitation cannot extend to the protected use ADU, and that's mandated by state law, not by local zoning.
Ms. Moore?
I'm going to step back to 10,000 feet here. I'm not a zoning expert. This stuff makes my eyes glaze over. However, the state imposed something really difficult on Nantucket. We had a system that worked for us. We were comfortable with primary, secondary, tertiary, where they were allowed, where they were not allowed. Whether we like it or not, the state imposed this ADU bylaw, this ADU law upon us. And I think the planning board and the planning staff have worked incredibly hard, understanding the implications of this mandate from the state and trying to keep us as close to status quo of what we had before this was imposed upon us as they possibly could, as the implementation of this new law is still being ironed out at the state level. So this is a process in progress to which we can only respond at an annual town meeting or a special town meeting, maybe once or twice a year. So I applaud planning and the planning staff for working incredibly hard to try to keep us as close to where we were before this was imposed on us. And I know Meg is advocating hard through the Seasonal Communities Act and our role as to explain to Boston that this really stuck it to us. And therefore advocating for things that will get us even closer to pre-state imposition status quo. So I would ask everyone to support this, knowing that it has some consequences that we could not have predicted and that may be uncomfortable, but to trust that planning are going to advocate really hard to get us closer to where we were before.
Well, is this not premature then?
Excuse me.
It's a bit of a leap of faith, but if we monkey with any pieces of this, we're going to have more unintended consequences, and we're going to give up things that we had under control before, and I think that's a higher risk, in my opinion. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you. So I'm going to go to the woman up there. And, yep, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Natalie Kaufman. I am an attorney here, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself. Okay. I appreciate the position that everyone is in, and I understand that the state has promulgated something that we now need to deal with, but the discussion of the status quo is the issue, is that I understand wanting to prevent increasing density, and I don't think that that intention is wrong. But in trying to prevent an increase in density, this is taking away rights that we have. So it isn't keeping the status quo, it's going the other direction. And if this is developing, which it is, and the state never knows exactly what's going on after they issue something, then there is a lot in play. And this can be dealt with in November. And I know that we don't like to kick things down the road, but we kick less important things down the road all the time. So I would suggest that you vote no on this because it doesn't keep the status quo. It takes things away from us.
Thank you. Ms. Sutton?
Hi, am I mistaken? Did she just imply we were having a special town meeting in November? I missed that part. Hopefully not. I would agree with Ms. Moore on this. I realize that not everything is perfect in this, but it's going to give us greater protections if we adopt what has come to us and how we're trying to deal with it. And as the state irons things out and starts to take or continues to take input from the towns that have been affected by their, big decision, and now they're finding that they need to flex and be a little more flexible. I think that's great. I didn't really see where much was being taken away. It's not like you were allowed to have 3 in the districts that are being spoken of, and now you can only have 2. In the districts that were referenced, you were only allowed 2 anyway. It's just that now one will be the second unit would be declared your protected use ADU. And as the Ms. Rayport and Mr. Iverson implied, and I have been to the meeting, so I have heard them talking about the expansion of the 900 gross square foot gross floor
Gross floor area.
Yeah, area. So I'd like to just continue to trust in the work that they're doing and encourage everyone to vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson?
Thank you. Thank you, Brooke, for so well explaining that, and thank you, Campbell, for trusting us. Again, I would urge patience, please. We're aware. We know what's going on. It's very difficult for us. We hear you. No more density. No more density. We are trying to create that situation for people without hurting people. So I just ask you to please be patient and look for us to update this again at the next town meeting. As we hear debate killing this, on our next agenda, we have 40 freeze plans. Those are property owners that saw this coming and have frozen their right to have 4 dwellings on their property. We kill this, be careful, okay? That's not a threat. I'm just telling you the reality of the situation on the ground here. So I urge you to please vote yes on this, and please be patient as we work out the details. The state really has thrown us a curveball, and we're doing our best to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Up in the back.
Ethan Griffin, 50 Pleasant Street. One thing I just wanted to maybe have someone from the town clarify is, or maybe this will make me feel a little bit more comfortable, would be whatever kind of progression from a limitation may get amended in the future, what we would have got with a second dwelling would be restored with that. 900 square feet of gross area is drastically different than your ground cover. You know, if you're wanting to have a first floor, second floor, and a finished basement, that's a 300 square foot ground cover, which you put a stair in there, that's a tiny, tiny structure. So, you know, I'd feel a lot more comfortable about this if there was someone from the town that could say, look, it's not necessarily 1,200 in the future, it's not a number, it's what your square footage would have been with the remainder of your allowable ground cover, you know, maybe ×3 or whatever. From a density standpoint, you know, we do a great job as a town by regulating the ground cover ratio. So 40%, that doesn't change whether you have 1, 2, or 3 structures, and your parking requirements. So these denser areas, particularly in town and ROH, which my property is, those are historically relatively dense anyways, and we are restricted by the ground cover and whatever parking spaces we're, you know, able to put in. So whether we have 2, 3, 10 structures, we're still at 40%, and that's a density regulation that exists. So I'd just like some assurance from the town that, you know, moving forward, maybe my future second dwelling, you know, would not be restricted by a gross area, would be allowed what we normally would have under the ground cover regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Moulton?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Emily Molden with the Nantucket Land and Water Council. I just wanted to briefly also echo Ms. Moore's comments and say that I support this. I hope that we can pass this. I think the planning board and staff have identified a way to move forward and incorporate this state legislation that is appropriate and helps to address the concerns that Mr. Iverson was raising. And I do think that there's room and opportunities to make changes to this moving forward, but I do think it's important for us to address and incorporate the state legislation in this way tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. This gentleman down here? You want me to go to Ms. Hill? Okay.
The state has put the planning board in a really difficult position with this ADU legislation. Most towns and cities in the Commonwealth do not have an allowance for secondary dwellings. It's something we've had and we've regulated for so many years, and I understand that nobody wants to give up their own personal property rights, but I really urge you to vote for this article. I think the planning board completely understands that people want to preserve their own secondary dwelling rights, but we definitely, even especially now that this has been raised tonight, do not want to see a number more freeze plans and approvals. If I were to put my real estate hat on, as an attorney or a broker, would probably call up every client tomorrow and say, we need to file some applications. So I really urge you to vote for this tonight. and trust in your planning board that they will do the proper planning to bring things back to how they were, essentially. Thanks.
Now I'd like to call the question, please.
Oh, okay. I think we can probably just go to a vote. All right. So we're going to go to a vote on Article, this is 51. The motion is as printed in the warrant, beginning on page 82, continuing all the way to page 83. A yes vote will adopt the motion. A no vote will defeat the motion. It does require a 2/3 vote. It's 1 for yes, 2 for no, and voting is now open. Voting is closed on the motion. Yes, 285, no, 63. That motion is adopted. Okay, that finishes the zoning portion of this town meeting. Nice job planning. We will go to Article 72. Article 72 is on page 139 of the warrant. It had a move to take no action on the article motion from the Finance Committee. The sponsor, Mr. Webb, has provided us with the motion that's printed on the screen. It's essentially moving the subject matter of Article 72. And Mr. Webb, there you are. Is that your motion?
Aye.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, motion is made and seconded. Go ahead, Mr. Webb.
Madam Moderator, members of town meeting, my name is Hollis Webb. I'm here to ask for support on Article 72. Article 72 would raise the approval threshold for demolishing certain historic structures from a simple majority vote to a 2/3 vote of the Historic District Commission. In practical terms, it means that before a contributing historic structure is erased from Nantucket's history, there must be broader agreement. A simple majority should not be enough to permanently remove part of Nantucket's historic fabric. I'm also offering an amendment recommended by Town Council and the town meeting moderator. Article 72 is written as a bylaw amendment, but the Historic District Commission was originally created through a special act of the state legislature. Because of that, the amendment authorizes the select board to file a home rule petition with the legislature so the vote of town meeting can be ratified and confirmed. The amendment does not change the intent of Article 72. It strengthens the process and gives us the best chance of ensuring that the will of town meeting is upheld. This article will not stop development. Projects can still move forward. It will not block new housing or prevent thoughtful change. It simply requires a higher level of agreement before demolition. And the reason for that higher standard is simple. Demolition is permanent. Once a historic building is gone, it is gone for good. Demolition does not just remove a structure. It takes with it the original materials, the hewn timber, the brick and lime, the historic sash, the handwork, and the proportions shaped by the effort and endurance of the craftsmen who built and maintained it. We already require a 2/3 vote for many consequential decisions. Zoning changes require it. Special permits require it. Certain appropriations require it. If those decisions require broader agreement, then the demolition of historic structures should require broader agreement as well. I also want to speak briefly from my own experience. I was born and raised on Nantucket. After serving 7 years in Special Forces with multiple combat deployments, I came home and used a GI Bill to attend the Preservation Carpentry program at North Bennett Street School. That's the oldest trade school in the nation. Since then, I have devoted my work to protecting Nantucket's historic heritage. I've committed myself to traditional building practices, and it has been one of my greatest honors to work on many of Nantucket's oldest structures. When you work on these buildings, you understand that they are not just old houses. They carry the lineage of generations of craftsmen, housewrights, and caretakers who made Nantucket what it is. Nantucket has always been defined by its historic buildings and streetscape. In the 1840s, Nantucket faced a decline of the whaling industry and the devastation of the Great Fire of 1846. Decades that followed brought hardships that are difficult for many of us to fully imagine. And out of that hardship, many of Nantucket's older buildings survived. As the island's economy contracted and the population declined, many houses were left standing. The very hardship that limited Nantucket's growth also spared much of its older architecture. Ironically, that period of hardship is one reason Nantucket still has one of the finest concentrations of pre-Civil War homes in the nation. Later generations recognized the value of that inheritance and chose to preserve it. Now it is our responsibility to carry that forward. Every time one of these buildings disappears, we lose a piece of our shared history. Article 72 gives us an opportunity to recommit to that legacy. It recognizes that demolition should meet a higher standard because the loss is permanent. I respectfully ask for your support on this amendment, and I ask you to vote yes on amended Article 72. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could yield my remaining time to Rita Carr.
Sure, she gets 2 minutes, so. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Rita Carr, and I am the chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission. We reviewed this article at our most recent meeting, and members of the Historical Commission were unanimously in favor of the intent of this article to protect historic structures and require a higher quantum of vote for demolitions. The version of the article which we reviewed did not have the amendment about authorizing the select board to file a home rule petition to ratify and confirm this vote if deemed necessary, and therefore there was some concern with members of our commission that the article as initially written wouldn't be effective. But I feel with this amendment that Hollis has proposed, I strongly encourage you to vote yes on this article to protect historic structures here on the island. Thank you.
Thank you. Up in the
May
back?
I?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Colleen McLaughlin. I'm 9 Green Meadows Drive, born and bred. Many people in this room remember my father, John McLaughlin, Mr. HGC, served for 50 years on the HGC. I believe he would have supported Article 72. Nantucket's historic architecture is what brought people to the island, and this pulled us out of the Depression after whaling collapsed. Saving and restoring historic structures is something Nantucket has always done and must continue to do. My father was at times critical of the HDC, but always in a constructive way. This was his copy of Building with Nantucket in mind, the HDC's guidelines, which he followed to the letter. I recently reread the guidelines, in particular Appendix C, which is the HDC's demolition policy. It's important for people to understand that Article 72 does not change the HDC's guidelines. The HDC will continue to set its own guidelines and to decide which buildings must remain because they contribute to the integrity of our historic district and which can be let go. What Article 72 will do is ensure greater agreement before a structure that is old enough to be considered historic may be demolished. In the late 1990s, my father attempted to retire from the HDC. Didn't last long. Nearly 30 years ago to this very day, he wrote a letter to the editor offering advice to his fellow commissioners and the HDC staff. The letter began with one central idea, the importance of consistency. He wrote, "Consistency is the key word to the respect that should be given to the HDC." He went on to detail the problems that arise when the HDC's decisions are inconsistent with the guidelines and inconsistent with each other. Article 72 will promote consistency, it will promote respect, it will protect our history. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Brian Sullivan. I really appreciate the article that Hollis brought to us to contemplate tonight. I have a little bit of an issue with it, and I was going to sit in my seat and vote no on the article and not support it because I have an issue with 50 years. I'm 51 years old, and I'm not historic yet. 1975 was not Nantucket's best architectural decade. Our energy code that we live in now will create a lot of real problems with keeping some of these structures. I think there's a window of time around this 50 years. Basically, from 1965 through 1990, the construction quality on Nantucket, as we start moving on, calling this historic is tough. I'd respectfully like to offer I want to support this. I'd like to respectfully offer an amendment to change 50 years to 100. And so we're looking at structures that are more historic.
Okay, so your amendment would change the word 50 to 100?
Or actually, maybe 200. Yeah, I would do 100 because I want to support the concept. That puts us to, what, 1926 and older? I think 1975 is kind of unrealistic, but.
Okay, so your amendment is to change 50 to 100?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second? All right. On the amendment, Mr. Giorgio. Oh, do you want to go on the amendment? Sure, go ahead, Ms. Backus.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Holly Backus, Preservation Planner. On the amendment, but first of all, I would be remiss if I didn't support the article as a whole. However, I am critical to anything that tries to circumvent the HDC special legislation, so I'm glad of the intent and the changes to the motion. Nantucket's HDC was enacted in 1955 as special legislation to the state, passed by this body and has been updated a dozen times since. The boundary changed from the 1955 districts of Old Town and Wisconsin, expanded in 71 by this body to include the entire island. In 1966, the passage of the National Historic Preservation Act by Congress, Nantucket became one of the first National Historic Landmark districts, with our contributing structures listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The National Register of Historic Places classifies that a property must be at least 50 years old to be eligible for listing. This age requirement helps ensure that the property has historic significance and context. For us, that would take us up to 1976. But by this body, our National Historic Landmark nomination was updated in 2012 by CPC funds to expand and document buildings, and the update also included our period of significance of resources constructed from 1659 through 1975. That is our period of significance. So the NHL update, the rationale for this 1975 is that it marks the final piece of regulatory framework which governs preservation on this island. 1975 should be the cutoff, nothing else. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Mr. Giorgio, did you have something? That was it? Okay. I see. Go ahead, Ms. Soda.
I'm speaking in favor of this, but not the 100 years. 50 years, all the churches on Nantucket have qualified for CPC funding because they hit the 50-year historic district recognition. So you would eliminate all that restoration that happened to all our churches on the island. So stick with the 50 years, please.
The woman up in the back.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Melissa Murphy, 3 Alexandria Drive. I would encourage everyone to vote no on this amendment. I think the change from 50 to 100 years isn't necessary. All we're asking What I think this is asking is that we have a 2/3 vote of the commission. So anything older that, my good friend Brian mentions may not be the most shining example of our historic construction would be at the discretion of our commissioners, and we're just asking for 2/3 vote. So I would encourage you to vote no on this amendment and yes on the article.
Thank you. Mr. Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I feel 100 years completely guts the intent of what Hollis is trying to do, and with all due respect to Mr. Sullivan, I'm not going to be supporting this. Also, I'd like to thank 7 years Special Services. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Carr?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Rita Carr again. I would also encourage you to vote no on this amendment. And I think there's a example from last week's Historic District Commission meeting that might be demonstrative for people. There was a house approved for demolition that is 56 years old, built in 1970 on Nobodere Ave. That was approved unanimously on the consent agenda for demo or move off. Hopefully someone will be able to take it and move it and it won't be demolished. But this article would do nothing to change that approval process. If it's an uncontroversial demolition, then nothing changes. So I would encourage you to vote no on the amendment and yes on the article. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to a vote on Mr. Sullivan's amendment. It requires a majority vote. A yes vote will adopt the amendment. A no vote will defeat the amendment. The amendment is to change 50 years ago or longer to 100 years ago or longer. It's 1 for yes, 2 for no, and voting is open. So while I'm thinking about it, when you're all leaping up and leaving, please take any trash or empty water bottles, all that stuff with you. We had quite a mess we were left with, and I say we very, very broadly because I wasn't doing any of the cleanup. But there were people here doing cleanup, and I felt very badly at the mess that they were left with. So please bus in and bus out, or whatever the term is. Pack in, pack out. Thank you. Voting is closed. On the amendment, yes 53, no 288. That is not adopted. So on Mr. Webb's motion, which is as printed on the screen, that also requires a majority vote. I think we can go to a vote on that as well. It's 1 for yes, 2 for no. You're voting on the main motion as printed on the screen. Voting is open. Voting is now closed. On the motion, yes 290, no 58. That is adopted. Okay. Last article, 73. Starts on page 139. The motion is on page 140. The motion is as printed in the warrant, and I'll recognize Chair of the Finance Committee, Jill Veith, for the purpose of making that motion. Is there a second? Motion is made and seconded, and I'll go to you, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vince Murphy, the town's Sustainability Programme Manager. The bluff below Baxter Road is actively eroding, and the risk is clear. Continued erosion could breach the road, disrupting critical services. Article 73 would authorise the Select Board to issue a licence to use town property to protect Baxter Road, keeping it open while safeguarding nearby homes, tourist attractions, and essential infrastructure like town water lines and town sewer lines. As we've seen in the Alternative Access Plan, relocating those buried utilities would be extremely costly, about $24.1 million as estimated in 2024, and costs have not gone down. This licence would be granted to the Sconset Beach Preservation Fund, or SBPF, for erosion control measures on the public beach, including geotubes, coir logs, and dune nourishment. Just as important, the licence terms strictly bind SBPF to responsible management. If SBPF failed to meet the terms, the town has strong enforcement mechanisms, including removal of the structures. We have developed licence terms that go with this article. SBPF must place significant funds in escrow up front. That's $2.4 million for potential geotube removal, $6 million for 1 year of sand nourishment potentially, and $500,000 for potential road repair costs. That's upwards of $9 million in safety. This is not a guarantee or a bond. These are cash reserves immediately available to the town if needed. Our financial risk is fully covered and control remains with the town. The Conservation Commission has already approved this project and addressed environmental impacts through its order of conditions. The language in this article aligns directly with Town Code Chapter 67. Island-wide, this project can be a model for property owners to pay for coastal resilience into the future and reduce taxpayers' costs. The neighbourhood-driven project model. This is a practical, responsible path protecting vital public services and infrastructure at no cost to the taxpayer. The homeowners are funding the solution while the town retains oversight and security in this land licence agreement. With your permission, Madam Moderator, I would like for Meredith Moldenhauer to speak next, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Meredith Moldenhauer with the Sconset Beach Preservation Fund. I am a Baxter Road homeowner and a board member. I'm honored to be here tonight with our partner, the town, and thank you so much, Vince, for your remarks. We appreciate the close collaboration that we've had with the town over the last several years in order to bring the geotube expansion project before you this evening. This was not simple or quick, but by staying committed, we created a public-private partnership that we hope the town can be proud of. I think everyone in the room can agree that erosion is a real problem and a threat to the entire island. I remember sitting in Vince's office a number of years ago where he showed me the map of the island, and he told me that every area along the island is eroding but for two. We are asking that you allow us as individual homeowners and private citizens to fund, construct, and maintain the project at no cost to you, the taxpayers, rather than allowing erosion to take its course with no plan and unforeseen risks. With the Sconset Bluff facing ongoing erosion, a yes vote tonight on Article 73 is a vote for stewardship and a vote for resilience. The science, data, and monitoring have shown that over the last 12 years, the GO2 project works. No project is perfect, and we've learned a lot over that time. And yes, the project had been ordered to be removed, which was a difficult but important moment in our history. Because of that, we ended up getting together with the town and working collaboratively to file the joint application before you tonight. Because of that, we are here standing together with the town as our partner, and we have a project that is stronger, for it. The project that is before you is wrapped in layers of oversight, as Vince indicated, and should hopefully give you the confidence to be able to vote yes. Its approved order from the Concom has 72 additional restrictions. It adopts an adaptive sand management plan, which is based on actual erosion, and that is why compatibility is now achievable. It also mandates the 105,000 cubic yards of sand to be provided as sand mitigation, correcting past noncompliance. All of this approval, after all this approval, we spent 6 months working back and forth with the town on the license terms that Vince mentioned, which add additional protections and escrows to protect town residents. The project would be delivered also with amenities, including parks, benches, and new beach access in this area. All of this paid for by private homeowners and not the taxpayers. I am here tonight before you because I believe in this plan, and I believe that this is the best solution for the entire island and for all of you, and I hope that you agree with me that at the end of the day, this is a win-win.
Thank you. Mr. Balkind?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Burton Balkind. Some I know me as Spruce. I am the president of the Nantucket. Well, Charles wants me to face front. Sorry. I just like looking at it. I don't want you guys to see my back the whole time.
If you'd like to come down and address everybody, you can come down and do it from the front.
It's all right. I think most of the people know who I am, so I'm fine with that. But anyways, I'm the president of the Nantucket Coastal Conservancy. I'm trying to keep my heart rate down, but I am racing a little here, so I'll try and talk clearly. I'm here to ask you all to vote no on 73, and I have a few reasons why. The first reason is Catherine Flanagan Stover. She was our beloved town clerk when the geo wall was proposed and licensed by the town, and she saw that process didn't jive with her, so she came up with an article and then got it passed at town meeting that any private use of a public beach for erosion control takes the power away from the town and gives it to the town people, us. And so that's the first reason. Second reason why I'm going to ask you to say no on 73 is years later, the town, and if it's infinite wisdom, came up with a new saying, private-public partnership. And that coinage of the term was they were able to bypass town meeting. So there was no vote. So we came back in 2018 and asked the town to close that loophole that the town had found. Now that gets us to the present. And the third reason why I'm going to ask you to say no for this project is that we have an abandoned geo wall in Sconset right now. Hasn't been touched, mitigated, monitored, maintained in over 3 years. And the Conservation Commission that was mentioned earlier has a removal order that they found that this was in violation of many of the orders of conditions that they agreed to. And that order, that removal order was upheld by a Superior Court judge. So now we are today asked by the town leaders to vote on whether we should move forward with an expansion to 4,000 feet when we have had a failure of 1,000 feet of geotube. So I'm going to ask you, in the spirit of Kathleen Flanagan Stover, and as someone that cares a lot about our town beaches, to say no to this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Spruce. Hello, I'm Maureen Phillips, and I'm here to speak on behalf of 5 former members of the Concom who no longer serve because we voted to follow the science and the law and refused to give in to political pressure. As the record shows, The town's partner, SBPF, has a long track record of violating the terms of their permit and ignoring successive enforcement orders. When the commission finally ordered the removal of the project, as Bruce mentioned, they appealed the order, but the judge in the Nantucket Superior Court said that order is well substantiated by the record in this case. So we get to how the select board decided to solve this issue for themselves. They started a campaign to strategically remove four highly qualified incumbents of CONCOM to gain what the SBPF's president called a more, quote, open-minded, unquote, commission. In my view, being open-minded should not mean ignoring the facts and the law. This tactic undermines the independence of all our volunteer commissions. The clear message is to agree with the select board or you lose your place. The collateral damage included the 5 commissioners, including myself. We had a total of 25 years of service. 2 had served as a chair, 1 as vice chair. Several of us have advanced environmental degrees, and 1 commissioner resigned in protest after they had removed 3 others. Tonight, we have a chance to right this wrong. We must approve the license of public beach property for the purpose of erosion control. This Article 73, excuse me, is seeking that approval for this expansion. I am speaking on 5 former members, former chairs Ashley Erisman, Ian Golding, Sarah Octai, and Mark Beal, and myself. We ask you to please vote no on 73. Let's not allow the select board and their partner to circumvent the science and the law. Thanks.
Thanks. I have a gentleman up in the back. If you could go to him, please.
All right. My name's Helmut Weimar. I first came to this island on my honeymoon in 1958, and my wife came here as a kid in the early 40s, as a young baby, and her mother came here in the beginning of the 20th century as a baby. And we have been, for several years now, been spending more than 6 months a year on island and are voting residents of the island. And we love Nantucket Island and love Sconset in particular. Nantucket is an island in a rising sea level. It is suffering erosion, and that erosion will only increase if the island doesn't commit itself to preserving itself via erosion control. This is an early example of that, and it's critical that the island commit itself to self-preservation, and this is an early step in that process. So I urge you to vote yes on Article 73. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Saperstein?
Madam Moderator, thank you. I've got a tangential observation on this whole thing, and it has to do with the geology of Nantucket. The bluff, for the record, I have enough credits in my undergraduate degree to have a minor in geology. The bluff represents the stratigraphic history of the deposition. And anytime there's a discussion about protecting the bluff, I'm going to be standing up and saying, this represents our geologic history. Let's do everything we can to protect it. The beach is valuable, but the beach is unconsolidated sand. Things that we do to the beach can harm it. And I recognize that this is the case when people put up hard armor and other things on the beach. But the plan that I've seen coincides with my interest in protecting the bluff and its stratigraphic history of Nantucket. Thank you all. I apologize. I'm somewhere between you and adjournment.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Julie Reddick-Mead, and I am the Executive Director of the Sconset Trust, which has the mission of preserving the character of the village of Sconset by conserving open land, preserving historically and or architecturally significant structures, and fostering a healthy commercial center, all in keeping with Sconset's character. The Trust has owned Sankaty Head Lighthouse and the surrounding 7 acres of property since 2007, making us one of, if not the largest, landowner on Baxter Road. In 2007, the Trust moved Sankaty 280 feet to protect it from rising sea levels and the eroding bluff. This spring, we moved 300 feet of fencing along the bluff, again due to erosion. The lighthouse sits on the boundary of the Trust's property thanks to an easement from Sankaty Head Golf Club, and we currently have nowhere else to move it. According to Arcadis, a global design, engineering, and management consulting firm, the geotubes have mitigated erosion, and their removal would hasten erosion, leading to a more imminent breach of Baxter Road. The damage to the geotubes this winter and the severity of the February storm have only heightened those concerns. As I think we can all agree, the lighthouse is a symbol of Nantucket for thousands of visitors, including year-rounders, summer residents, and tourists. All you have to do is stand on Baxter Road to witness the constant flow of people biking, jogging, walking, and driving up to the lighthouse for photographs, hugs, and a couple times a year, even climb to the top. Continued erosion along the bluff, and certainly a breach of Baxter Road, will result in the need to remove several homes and relocate the road as well as the infrastructure provided to the remaining houses. While the proposed alternate access road does provide for access to the lighthouse, its location and distance will make visiting Sankaty more difficult and limited and significantly change the experience for visitors to our beloved island icon. Sconset Trust is committed to cooperating with all entities working to slow bluff erosion and mitigate sea level rise in Sconset as well as across the entire island. As such, in the fall of '23, we supported the Select Board's refiling of the Notice of Intent for the Geotube Expansion Project, and in the springs of '24 and '25, we urged CONCOM to approve the project. Article 73 is the next step in this process, enabling the town to license the beachfront below the bluff for erosion control measures. Please vote yes on Article 73 so we can all move forward with the best possible plan for continued access to Baxter Road and our beloved lighthouse. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you. Thank you. So 2 previous speakers mentioned some of the legal history for this project, and we're discussing a judge's removal order that was upheld by a state circuit court judge, if I remember rightly. The Conservation Commission went through 15 months of hearings, the longest hearings that this commission has had in memory, possibly ever. They were hearing the application where they could find a path they could find a path for compliance, to bringing the existing structure back into compliance under the existing wetland bylaws through a new order. That the Conservation Commission then upheld, and we're in the process of finishing tonight with the license to use the town beach. This is a path to returning to compliance and fixing issues that are currently on the ground.
Ms. Moulton?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Land and Water Council. We have participated in discussions around erosion control on the Sconset Bluff for many years and certainly recognize the sensitivity of the issue as it relates to private and public property and infrastructure. The Land and Water Council is opposing Article 73 for 3 primary reasons. First, as the article itself is drafted, it is unnecessarily open-ended and vague. It is not limited to the geotube expansion project that we're discussing. Instead, it essentially issues a blank check for the beach to be utilized for the construction of any type of erosion control structure in the future, including structures such as bulkheads that are issued a permit by the Conservation Commission. As written and without more specificity, or a requirement to come back to town meeting at any point in the future, this article has no sunset date. It's essentially sidestepping the spirit of our bylaw, Chapter 67(1)E, which, as you heard earlier from Spruce, has been supported by town meeting twice, and which is what gives us as Nantucket citizens a voice for what gets built on our public beach. Any changes to how the beach is being used in the future would no longer be subject to voter approval, and as far as we can tell, that transfer of authority would remain in effect indefinitely. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we're opposed to Article 73 because, as we've heard from the Massachusetts Coastal Zone Management Agency and the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, in their comment letters on the proposed geotube expansion project, there is still entirely too much missing information to determine whether or not the project can even be fully permitted or legally built, let alone to determine how extensive the negative impacts may be. Respectfully, the town's co-applicant has failed time and time again to comply with their commitments, license conditions, and with past permit requirements. So unfortunately, we have very little reason to believe that they will do so in the future.
Thank you.
We hope you'll vote no.
Thank you. Ms. Soto?
3 Darren Beach Road. For someone who's followed this issue for the past 5 years, actually gone to the area, looked over the cliff, and seen for herself that the geotubes do not work. The last storm took them out. So, trying to hold back the ocean is impossible. It's a shame that our very learned Conservation Commission was dissolved because they stood up to this organization. And this organization has violated the rules and conditions time and time again. So I don't have any faith in them as being leaders or stewards of the beaches. And I am a former Parks and Recreation Commission person, and I value our beaches immensely. I haven't heard anybody from Sheep Pond or Nantucket get up and complain that their houses went into the ocean, okay? It's only Sconset. So I am urging you to vote against this. You don't want to give up the stewardship of your beaches. They're too important. Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. As an ever-dwindling number of you may recall, I had the privilege of serving as a select board member between 2012 and 2015. That was a long time ago, but I have some very vivid memories of my time on the board that I think might be relevant to this discussion tonight. During my term, we spent more time on the issue of the Sconset Bluff than on any other single issue. After long, difficult, and often contentious discussions, we reached what I believe then and still believe now was a fair and carefully balanced compromise. The SBPF agreed to give up the right to install a permanent rock revetment, basically a large pile of boulders at the bottom of the bluff. In exchange, they were allowed to install the geotubes, a much more environmentally friendly solution and, very importantly, removable in the event that they failed. This was intended to be a 3-year trial. At the end of that period, there was supposed to be a clear decision: remove them or let them be expanded. The SBPF stepped up and did everything right at that point. They raised over $5 million to install the geotubes. They raised another almost $5 million to maintain the geotubes and put the sacrificial sand in that was required by the agreement. 3 years elapsed, and by all evidence, the geotubes had worked. No one suggested that they should be removed. The bluff was intact. Somehow, the opponents of the project succeeded in stalling the process for the expansion so successfully that the years clicked by year after year, and every one of those years, the SBPF was expected to come up with another $1 million to $1.5 million of sacrificial sand. They were very successful in that regard, and eventually, the SBPF found it increasingly difficult to continue to raise that money. Why? Because many of their supporters were contributing based on the expectation that their houses would be protected by the expansion. And when that failed to materialize, they stepped aside, making it harder and harder for the remaining members of the SBPF to come up with the additional money in order to keep funding the sand. So Eventually, they ran out of money. They just simply couldn't come up with money to dump sand over the bluff without a clear path forward in mind. From a distant observer standpoint, it was a brilliant strategy. Stall and stall and stall until your opponents run out of money, and then turn to the Conservation Commission and blow the whistle on them for not maintaining the sand requirement.
Thank you.
So this is a really complicated issue, and there's a lot of ways to make your decision. But one way should not be to fault the SBPF for spending over $15 million on our behalf in order to try to protect this bluff. I think at this point, we should build upon that investment and give them a chance to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman up here in the...
Yeah, hi, Fletcher Haig. Let's see if I can get this up a little. So, excuse me. I was born living in Sconset. My parents lived in Sconset through the 70s, and Sconset Beach was my mother's favorite place in the world. We spread her ashes there some years back. I've been following the erosion control measures for plus and minus 30 years, 30 plus years from closer. From the original dewatering projects on Sconset Beach. I think we all saw the houses rinse away in the no-name storm in 1992 and the eastern side of the road on Codfish Park disappear. Over the last many years, I've been surfing on Nantucket for 40 years. First geotube structure I saw was at the Ratners out in Sheep Pond. It created a bit of a peninsula out there in Nantucket, good for surf, bad for all the neighboring shoreline, and I've seen that here in front of the geotubes. The abandonment of the current geotube project, I think, has been obvious, and the give us what we want or else we're just going to dig our heels in and scrap this project and you can't do anything about it attitude has what I would call has led to an erosion of trust of the public. I think that's been the threats of litigation as opposed to where it refers to whether we're going to do eminent domain takings or make agreements for access to Baxter Road, which we all know is going to disappear at some point. The management retreat recommended by Arcadis, it includes a requirement to find alternative access, and whether we do it now or we do it later, it will still need to be done. Expanding this project to quadruple its existing size is going to require quadruple the sand with no source, and it's just going to be a constant mess.
If you could wrap up, please.
Yeah, that's it. I also want to give Ms. Stover and the previous CONCOM members, Ms. Erisman, Ian, Ms. Octay, and Mr. Beal, a shout out. And I think if they were still the existing commission, we wouldn't be here talking about this right now.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Moderator, through
I'm
you.
going. Excuse me?
Madam Moderator, I was just going to respond to that, or?
No. I'll come down to you, but we're going to go over here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name's Rob Benchley. I live in Sconset. And I've been watching this for many, many years through all its various incantations and incarnations, geotubes being the most recent one. And, but first I'd like to say through you, Madam Moderator, that Mrs. Zada's comments about the geotubes not working is patently false. And her comments about why is it only Sconset is really inappropriate. Thank you for that. And you mentioned also, Ms. Zada, that nobody else is complaining about erosion. Well, that's because people are doing things about it. There are plenty of other places all around the island that are dealing with erosion. It's happening there. For example, on the North Shore, from around 40th Pole out to Eel Point, there are 20 properties on that part of the island, 20 different properties, and they've got about 4,300 feet of all different kinds of erosion techniques, anti-erosion techniques. They've got stone revetments, they've got bulkheads, they've got snow fence. A lot of these things are not approvable by the state of Massachusetts yet. There they are. On the inner harbor, there are 17 properties with bulkheads and reinforced sand. Some of them have a few geotubes. There's all kinds of different things going on there for the total of about 4,300 feet of erosion control. So it's nothing new. It's going on all over the place. And for people to single out Sconset as being sort of special is really unfortunate because it's happening island-wide.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Molnauer, did you want to respond?
Yes, thank you.
I understand what I'm doing. I'm going around the room. Thank you, Ms. Phillips. No, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Through you to respond to the last presenter, 2 presenters ago, rather, actually. We obviously, SBPF is getting a lot of challenges. We're getting a lot of comments in regards to, will you trust us? Will you be able to believe that we are going to comply with the requirements? And I think one of the things that Vince had identified is that, one of the things we've done with the license agreement, we've actually put a lot of specific conditions into that license agreement that provide specific requirements and conditions. In addition, there's a lot of past discussion. The project's been going on for many years. I've been involved in this for the last 6. During those last 6, I have personally attended Conservation Commission meetings. I've been at every single one of them almost, maybe minus 1 or 2. We've also have not abandoned the project. We even put sand on it more recently than less than a year ago, and we require approval for that. So we actually have to go back to the Conservation Commission every time that we want to be able to protect the project and be able to bring it into compliance and ask for permission. And more recently, we've actually asked for permission just a few weeks ago, but we're not allowed to do it because we don't have a license. So we are here tonight asking you to approve the license so that we can bring the project into compliance and we can be the good stewards that you want us to be and to protect not just the road, the infrastructure, but the community as a whole, and to be an example for other areas, because erosion is not just going to happen. It's not just happening in Sconset. It's happening in other areas, and we know that we need to find solutions for it as a community.
Thank you. Mr. Atherton?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Rick Atherton. Along with Mr. Miller, I sat on the Board of Selectmen when the first memorandum of understanding was agreed to between SBPF and the town, followed up by the issuance of a license. I voted no at that time because I felt we were going down the wrong road and the town would be in a weak position with an active applicant always wanting more from the town. And that's what's happened. I have issues with the approval process for the current project expansion, primarily related to the amount of mitigation that under the new license proposed is substantially removed from the initial 900 feet. And I think that's a big mistake. The problem with end scour, note that they never use the word scour anymore, is that it requires line extension, and that will go on forever. The other reason to vote no tonight is this article is really a repeal article. It takes the bylaw and makes it non-operative. This town meeting, I think, needs to pay attention when a board tries to take power back to it, where just 3 members of the board could amend the draft license tomorrow if you adopt this. If they want to come back with a license specifically and have it signed, sealed, and delivered, and then we can vote on it, that's one thing. That's not what they're asking us to do. They're asking us to approve an erosion control hard armory, which is subject to risk transfer to people up and down drift forever. You'll never get a chance to deal with this again, and you have to vote no tonight in order to maintain your ability to speak on how our beaches are used in Sconset. There are beaches.
Thank you. Ms. Andrews?
Yes, Virginia Andrews, One Stone Alley, known to most of you as Ginger. I served on the Conservation Commission from 2000 to about 2007, and I believe I signed some of those permits for the original dewatering system, which I observed last year is still washing up on some of the beaches, usually in Sconset. And to backtrack a little bit on the history, my father was a dory fisherman. So in his youth, he and his father would put their dories in at Hoyks Hollow, row south to Pochick Rip, fish, and then row back using the tide as an assist either way. And he observed, and Dr. West Tiffany also promoted published a paper at one of these coastal conferences showing that erosion is largely controlled by the shoals offshore, which can either act as natural breakwaters or, depending on the wind direction and the fetch of the wind and the severity of the storm, act to hit erosion harder in certain hotspots. So the problem is so much bigger than one bluff, one part of the island, another part of the island. And I want to observe, I'm going to lose my time. Sand is a great absorber of wave action, and hard structures reflect wave action, so you're not getting rid of that energy. The ocean needs more entertainment. I never thought that I would hear myself advocating for more rocks, but the actual contribution of the bluff is everything from pea gravel to larger stones to significant boulders. I remember when the clay knob was still there. Sorry, I'm out of time. I could talk for an hour and I won't.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Thank you.
No would be my it's just not ready.
Thank you. Mr. Fee, are you standing to speak or are you just standing? In a minute. Well, I mean, strike while the iron's hot. What about you, Mr. Topham? Are you up to speak, or what's happening over here? I'm trying to go around the room, you see,
Okay.
and so,
All right.
call me
Madam
crazy.
Moderator, Rob Benchley again. I just wanted to refer to what was said about the nature of the geotubes as being hard armoring, and it's not hard armoring. The state of Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection does not generally permit hard armoring because it causes erosion upstream and downstream. Like many of the installations I was telling you about earlier, both in the harbor and on the North Shore, rock revetments, I don't know how they got improved. But anyway, I'm not trying to do a this and that and this and that, but the difference here with the geotubes is that the sand is sacrificial, it's piled on, the storms come and take it away, instead of taking away the neighbor's sand, and the sand is put back. So to say in your argument that it's hard armoring, it is not hard armoring. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you again, Madam Moderator. So we're discussing sand that has been long discussed and debated at the Conservation Commission, and the Commission found answers for how to have a sand nourishment system and for the makeup sand. That is resolved. What we also have is terms for the license that were long negotiated and then agreed between the Sconset Beach Preservation Fund and the Select Board, and they were presented to the Select Board about 3-ish weeks ago and voted on and approved in their form. So there are 22 terms and a lot of subpoints in those terms that can give us the surety that we have a path forward and a system of checks and a system of financial management so that we can manage this new system and have backstops. If it doesn't work, it can be removed, and the town has the money to undertake it, if necessary, without SBPF's permission. We have sureties. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Goss?
The sand, this sacrificial sand, where does it come from? How is it getting here? We all know where it's going. What is the guarantee that the people who are paying this Sconset Beach Preservation Fund will not again get tired of paying $1 million a year to pay for this sand? I mean, I know that there's money in the bank to take it all away, but I'm really curious about how where the sand is coming from and how it's getting here, because it's coming by boat, or it's coming by road, or it's coming by boat and road, actually. That's a lot of traffic.
Through you, Madam Moderator.
Thank
can I
you.
answer that, or-
I'll go up to, I'll come back and get answers, but I'll go up to Mr. Golding first.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Good evening. My name is Ian Golding, and I served on the Conservation Commission for 12 years until 2024. I was a summer brat during the 1950s and 60s and moved here permanently in 1980. Our family house was 7 houses down from the Sconset Lighthouse at 99 Baxter Road. When I was a teenager, the house was set back from the road with a circular driveway in front, a large yard facing the ocean, and the public footpath, which in those days went up to the lighthouse, 90 steps going down to a wide stretch of dunes with another 15 steps going down to a wide beach. Now there is a fraction of the property left on the ocean side of Baxter Road. The house has been moved to the other side, and the reason why I'm telling you this is because I was and remain sympathetic to what Mr. Waymar and SPPF are trying to achieve. Unfortunately, during my time on the Concom, after initially approving the project in the hope that it would work, apart from the compliance issues, which were numerous, I came to realize the design was fundamentally flawed and that it would never provide enough sand during a major nor'easter to offset the amount that would come out of the bluff. Dr. David Kriebel, Professor Emeritus of Coastal and Ocean Engineering at the U.S. Naval Academy and Principal of Coastal Analytics, LLC, who appeared before the Concom on November 28, 2022, said as much when he was asked directly whether the geotubes were providing sufficient sand. In his 20-page presentation to the Commission titled Geotube Encroachment on the Public Beach, he summarized his findings as follows. Beach transect data collected at the geotube location over time shows that the construction of the geotubes immediately covered about half the natural berm. Erosion since then has resulted in loss of the remaining, berm. At present, no natural beach berm remains in front of the geotubes. Beach transect data from areas north and south of the geotubes have resulted in a dramatic reduction of beach width compared to unprotected beaches. The loss of the beach berm has eliminated the beach's first line of defense for dealing with erosion during storm events. A simplified extrapolation of existing erosion trends for 10 years into the future then show a major negative effect of the geotubes.
If you could wrap up, please, Mr.
One
Golding.
paragraph, please, Madam Moderator. On April 5th, 2024, Dr. Kriebel presented a 6-page alternative design stating that it was a good faith effort to balance the competing interests and concerns of SPPF and Baxter Road property owners, the town, adjacent property owners, and other community groups. His design was dismissed by SPPF in short order. I urge the voters of Nantucket to vote no on Article 73. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Up there in the back? Yes.
Am I close enough to this? Yes, I am.
Yes, you are, Ms. Murphy.
Thank you. I'm going to put my
glasses on, so I look a little smarter. I don't have prepared comments, but I'm not going to ramble, and I'll be out of here well in front of 2 minutes. Like many people in this room, I live in Sconset. I've only lived in Sconset for 40 plus summers, and then the past 5 years, year round. And I'm in favor of this project, but it's not because I live in Sconset. If I lived elsewhere on the island, I would still be in favor of this project. Somebody earlier mentioned that this is about righting a wrong, and it's not about righting a wrong. It's about negotiating a lease and going forward. And while the history is interesting, and I've been there for pretty much every minute of it, I would ask that this article be approved and the two entities be allowed to negotiate a lease. Thank you.
Thank you. What's happening down here now? Is it Mr. Allerhand's turn? Okay, thank you.
Look, it's getting late, and the problem is we're never going to come to a conclusion because we're arguing different things. One side is saying these people can't be trusted. They're also saying that private people shouldn't run the beach. Then we're hearing that what they're trying to do won't work anyway. And then we're hearing that people were wrongly removed. We're never going to come to a conclusion because we're not focusing on any particular issue. What I'm asking is, Mr. Murphy, is if this is not approved, what is the next step?
He's over here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so go ahead,
he's
Mr.
surrounded. He's
Go
over
ahead,
there.
Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr.
You may answer that question.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, and through the moderator to the previous speaker. If this is not approved, we're going to have to look at the other backup project, which is the alternative access project that we've been working on for 3.5, 4 years. And that goes from Sankaty Road into the back of people's homes to give access, water, and sewer. It's not just access, it's the other vital town services that are extremely costly to construct. In 2024, we had the final designs, and we had a cost estimate for it at that point. That's 2 years ago, and it was $24.1 million. I can only imagine that's gone up. We haven't had the costings updated, but that project is ticking along. So the reasonable alternative after this, if this were to get voted down, is that the town would have to come back in another future town meeting, undertake a borrowing of $24.1 million, and probably whatever the extra is on top of that. It's been a few years, inflation is a thing. To get that borrowing in order to undertake that construction, we'd be able to get some of that money back post-construction through betterments, but not all. So the town would bear cost.
And, let me just...
Thank you.
Can I just add to that?
Sure, go ahead.
But if you vote yes, one of the things that we've negotiated in the license is that we as SBPF will have to work with those homeowners that the easements would be with, and we actually can't even start construction until we provide those easements to the town, and we then also ensure that the betterment process is paid for by us. So you guys voted earlier, last night I was listening in on the sewage and the 25%. You wouldn't have to do that. This is where this is a win-win for the town because you don't have to come back and deal with that. And we agree that obviously at some point, this is a long-term resiliency plan. Part A, geotubes. Eventually, Part B, road relocation, and we coordinate that.
Mr. Allerhand, do you want to finish your comments?
Yeah, and then we could probably call the question. So I'm asking Mr.
Oh, we
Murphy
can't call the question because I haven't heard from Mr. Fee.
And I want to have his bread, so I'm not going to fight with him. But I want to ask Mr. Murphy this then. Cutting across all the questions, whether people can be trusted, whether wrong people were removed from the board, whether private people shall handle the beach, the actual thing that they're trying to do as a professional person, you think this will work?
Mr. Murphy?
Through the moderator, the previous speaker, short answer, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Fee, why don't you speak and then maybe we can go to a vote.
Yeah, no, the other point, Herschel, the other point I wanted to make is not only, like, the alternative access, those things are not ready yet. You know, that we need to get those in place. SBPF is required to give those willingly. You know, otherwise we have to do taking. So this isn't, you know, it's great to think that you know, we can vote no tonight and, you know, soon it'll be gone and all our issues will go away. If we vote no, what's going to happen is we're going to have even worse issues. It's going to be Sheep's Pond, which cost, you know, which we could better it, but Sheep's Pond isn't what's happening out here. Sheep's Pond is cheap. It was a dirt road. And we still had, you know, had tons of negotiations and tons of things we had to go through. We have put together a really, really strict license agreement, license points based on some of the mistakes we made earlier. And I think that what we've tried to do is buy time. You know, will it work? Yes. Will it work forever? No. I think what we're really arguing about is in between it's going to last forever or we should get rid of it tomorrow. And I would like us to vote yes tonight and then see how long it goes. You know, SBPF may go and try to get all the neighbors to agree to pay and they may not. But if that gets us all the easements for, you know, for the alternative access and that we need out there, the secondary access, then we've all won as a community. And I think that what's kind of missing in this is that we've become polarized. And there's one side and the other side, and they're both throwing things at each other. And what I think we need to do is what we've been really trying to do is find the middle, find a path forward that's going to work for the town and for the island. And the only other thing I wanted to say to an earlier question was, why is it different here than all the rest of the island? It's because we own a sliver of beach there. The rest of the island, and eventually that's going to erode, and then it's going to accrete, and the owners that are there are going to have it, and they're going to get to do it. They're going to get to do it individually like the rest of the island is doing now. So we as a community have more say on this parcel than we do on the rest of the island. And don't forget that the state has been critical of some of the things recently. This still has to pass the state. So I think that this is something we support. There's a lot of reasons to do it, and I hope we get that vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Topham?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Joe Topham, I was on the Concom for 6 years. All the data that I read, it was working. Are there flaws in the system? Is there some engineering little flaws that could be tweaked? Yes. One of the things that NPEDC is going to come up with at our next meeting is having fishing reefs and possibly shoals off this area along with off the airport. And don't forget about Nantucket. There were people in Nantucket came before the Concom and complained, what about us? So there is other things that we should be doing. And because right now, based on the master plan, the crack budget is going to be over $1 billion. So we're looking at $30 million for either infrastructure or letting this work as it's supposed to and let this move go forward. The other part of it is, I'm going to make you guys all Concom members. I'm going to mention one name out of respect, Steve Cohen. If you just grumbled or you just like, oh my God, Steve Cohen, you can't be on the Concom. You can't be on any board. You cannot have your personality on a board member. You have to look at the application. What is the application? And that's it, not the applicant. And what was happening was there were moments when Mr. Cohen came up or anyone else from SBPF, I was hearing groans. I was hearing moans. That's not the way to run a board. You have to allow anyone come forward. This is my property. I need to protect it. How do we do this? It's not a perfect system, but it's a lot better than rock revetment, but it's also something we need to be doing. So I hope that you guys will vote for this. We need this as a temporary stopgap because this is only 1% of Nantucket Beach. That's out of 82 miles. That's the other part you have to take into factor. We're going to do geotubes. We're going to do rock revetments to save the town. I can tell you right now, when we're saving the town, you're going to have breaches in Hummock Pond. You're going to have Satchaka Pond. You're going to have all these areas. At one meeting when I was on crack, Vince said that we were going to have to pay $125 million for 4 bridges on Nantucket. 2 in Nantucket, 1 by the Life Saving Museum, and 1 at Satchaka Pond. The problem is when you get to that height of level of water that he was mentioning, have a typical nor'easter. We're not going to be here, people. So this is a minor little thing that we need to move forward on. Thank you.
I just want to clarify for the visiting press that when Mr. Topham says he was on crack, he means he means the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
Jeez.
Sorry for that one.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bruce Miller. Just to state the obvious, I want to remind everybody that last night we voted to approve over $200 million in capital improvements. And I think the one thing that everybody in this room can agree on is that if the geotubes come out and we don't approve this expansion, that Baxter Road will be lucky if it lasts a year. And the price tag on that's going to be somewhere between $25 and $50 million. So this is almost a negative override. By voting to advance this project, we're going to save ourselves $25 to $50 million. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman up at the mic?
Hi, my name is Gerard Ruddick. I live on Bayberry in Sconset. So I'm in that danger zone. I appreciate the entire discussion and everyone's feelings about this. I just want to simplify it a little bit, that a yes vote allows us to take the next step to try to save homes and save a neighborhood. And like last night, where I was enthusiastically supporting extending the sewer and making sure that those folks were covered, we just want the opportunity to save homes and save a neighborhood. And so I really hope you will consider that and vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're getting close to a vote. I know, Mr. Kaiser, you would like to speak. So
Yes.
can we hear from you and then go to a vote?
Sure. I'm just trying to make.
Hold on. Ms. Phillips has something she wants to share. Yes? I see. I see. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Whoopsie. Anyway, Pete Kaiser, I've been in and around the water for 50 years, diving, flying, salvage work, now I'm in the charter business. One thing, we're always paying attention, when we're doing the salvage work, how do you make something float? Does it sink? Does it float? I was down in 2010, Ratner's name came up. In 2010, I was down off Sconset, a fishing trip, coming back up through, storm's coming, we got to get to the dock. I look over by Sacagawea Pond, it looked like a bluefish slick. It wasn't. You know what it was? 14 by 14. It was one of Ratner's bags, about that far below the surface, floating. Got up to by the Walwinnet, there was another one. It was a half a bag that had been ripped from the, being half buried in sand, and the ocean just ripped it in half. I was furious. I said, what the hell? I went, instead of accusing somebody of, wrongdoing, we got to the dock. I took a stitch of it, where the stitching was, ran out to Ratner's. There it was, Ratner's bag. I was wild. I was about, going to call the state, call everybody. We're unloading the bags. People probably remember this. I was unloading the bags over at Children's Beach, and at the steamship, I heard a big, like a semi go, bam! I thought, wow, what was that? I get a call from Phil Osley, my partner in the salvage business from the sunken ship. He goes, where are you? I said, I'm right over here. He goes, emergency dive job. So, guess what? For those who remember, they brought the boat around, the steamship. He was backing in, had plenty of sternway. He threw the other engine in gear, in reverse, locked the engine right up. You know what it was? A Ratner bag. And the thing about it is, nobody would, and then after that, there were two more bags that washed up, one on the jetty and one over by Washington Street. So, back when they were starting this whole thing, I had asked some of the guys that were doing the geotubes, this project, looking at it, I said, these things are massive. They must sink like a rock. Oh yeah, they sink. Just this afternoon, I wasn't here when it supposedly, allegedly got sliced.
If you could wrap it up, this would be great.
So here you go. This right here is part of what was stuck in the ground, in the sand, buried, and there's plenty more buried in the sand somewhere, all through there. I cut this off, right? Guess what? It floats. So all this whole thing, this massive project, it's got to be monitored to the hilts, because like right now, when those things ripped off, I mean, the small one was big enough to stop the ferry boat.
Right.
And I don't want to see anybody die by that. You wrap that in a prop, you can sink the boat.
Right.
So that needs
Thank
to
you.
be tended to.
Okay.
All right.
Ms. Phillips, you had something? I'm not hearing a lot of new, I mean, that was new, but I'm not hearing a lot of new stuff, so
I have some new stuff.
that would be great.
Okay. Something to think about is the sand part of this. This sand is going to be, there's no sand left on island to be used in any way to be able to keep these things covered. And part of this plan is we'll be dredging, and then that sand is going to be ferried over to the harbor, our main harbor, and then trucked, truckload by truckload, to Sconset. And that is something this is going to be a construction project forever. The ocean isn't going to give up. It doesn't care what we do anywhere. And so, so I think you really need to think about, we're also buying a pig in a poke, because what license? Does anyone here know the terms of the license? No, because it doesn't exist yet. There's an agreement between the select board and between SBPF, but there isn't anything for us to look at. So how we can...
If you could wrap up.
So how we can say yes to something that we don't even know what it is beyond me. So please vote no. Thanks.
Mr. Murphy?
So a couple of, thank you, Madam Moderator, and just a few corrections from the previous speaker. Yes, some people like to see a lot of trucks, but there's two parts to that. First, the number of possible truck trips would be the equivalent of 1/3 of one day in August of 2025. It's a very small number of truck trips. And it's spread over about a 4-month construction period, so it is dilute. Second, that is only the initial construction phases. There will be later phases where there would be sand that would be, correct me, pumped directly onto the site from potentially an offshore sand source. So there's other ways to reduce the truck trips, and which we're being very sensitive to, especially as it goes through our environmental justice communities.
Thank you. So I think we are ready to have a vote. Okay. So a yes vote will adopt the Finance Committee motion as printed in the warrant. A no vote will defeat that motion. It requires a majority vote. It's 1 for yes, 2 for no. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. Thank you, Mr. Young, because you never know what could happen. So on the vote on Article 73, yes, 163, no, 182. The article is not adopted. I will now recognize Don Holgate, the chair of the Select Board, for making a final motion. and a final something else.
Before we go to a final motion to commemorate the 30 years, we've been passing around a book and everyone has signed it for you, Sarah.
30 years of torment. That is very lovely. Thank you. But let's just go home. How about that? A final motion to dissolve, please. This is lovely, and I will read every single one and be quite sad. Yeah, no
Motion to
clapping.
dissolve the meeting.
Is there a second? All those in favor? I'm going to declare that unanimous. Thank you very much.